All right, a Wednesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Jack Johnson. We head up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you a number of things to get into today. We will talk some NFL football. We'll talk some college football, some Major League Baseball on the docket today. Cynthia Freeland will be our guest, NFL Network analytics expert, coming up at 11 o'clock. We'll talk with Daniel Holmes, RGR Football and the Draft Network, coming up at noon. Get his thoughts on the Chiefs and the trades that have been made, and did a film breakdown and a YouTube video last night on Joshua Uche and what he brings to the table. Mick Schaefer will join us in the 1 o'clock hour, KSHB 41 Sports Director. We've got Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold coming up at 6 o'clock, and then Game 5 of the World Series. The Yankees extend the series by at least another game. Game 5 tonight, Cole Flaherty. We'll see what happens with that, but that's right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Major League Baseball playoff coverage on Sports Radio 810, brought to you by Greenlight Dispensary. Check out greenlightdispensary.com for all premium cannabis products this playoff. So we'll talk some Major League Baseball today as well. 913-912-4810 is the text line. 913-912-4810 text line to join us. A couple of trades since we've had an opportunity to really break those down. Yesterday we were talking, breaking news happened while we were on the air with Todd Lebo yesterday, and I think Fact or Fiction are right around that. Deontay Johnson traded to the Baltimore Ravens, didn't have an opportunity to really break it down. I want to get into more about that. And then Cam Robinson, Kyle Long said that Cam Robinson might be a Chief by the end of the day. Boy, that would have been really difficult to do with his $17 million base salary. Would have been you'd have been a Brett Veach magician if they would have been able to pull that one off. And
or just the Saints. Pretend like it doesn't matter.
That's right. Just kick the can down the road every year. Well, we got to get out of this cap hell. I'm not sure if we can win, but we're going to get out of cap hell next year. You know, we just got to figure out how to get out of this cap deficit. We're not going to win. We just got to figure out how to get out of this cap deficit.
They just keep extending to Alvin Kamara. He's going to be 40 years old,
God,
making $26 million a year.
You just didn't have to do that, man. Like, it's just unbelievable. But Cam Robinson is traded to the Minnesota Vikings. They lose Christian Darrisaw, and they've obviously got big plans this year for how good they think they can be. And losing one of the better left tackles in the league put them in more of a difficult situation to where they were the ones that went and traded for Cam Robinson. We'll talk with Cynthia Freeland about these different trades, and I want to get her thoughts on who's going to be the most impactful. Because I think the answer is the Chiefs if you say Hopkins and Uche. Like, that's Cooper to Buffalo, Adams to New York, Deontay Johnson to Baltimore, Cam Robinson to Minnesota, or DeAndre Hopkins and Joshua Uche to Kansas City. I mean, you get a wide receiver and a pass rusher. That's obvious. But I'm going to separate those. I'm going to ask Cynthia Freeland of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trades that are the bigger name trades. I know there was an exchange from Tennessee and Seattle. They exchanged players, but that's sort of low-key. But the bigger ones that we've talked about, Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Cam Robinson, Joshua Uche. Out of those 6 players, who's the most impactful? And I'm curious as to what Cynthia Freeland thinks is going to be the answer there, because, I mean, I can make a case that, you know, Uche might be the most impactful for what the Chiefs need. I don't think that would be the answer from Cynthia Freeland. DeAndre Hopkins might be the answer. Amari Cooper in Buffalo might be the answer. Heck, Deontay Johnson. I don't think it's Cam Robinson in Minnesota, because I think he's had his struggles in pass protection, and I think they've added Cam Robinson, but they've still taken a decent step back from Darrisaw to Cam Robinson.
Darrisaw is a top 7, top 5 left tackle.
Yeah, so impact, because they're not adding. They're adding from a deficit, but the deficit is there because of injury, so they're actually taking a step backwards. You could sort of say the same thing about DeAndre Hopkins, right, with Rashee Rice, you know, and going to DeAndre Hopkins. But we'll see what she has to say about that. Get her thoughts on some of the other teams in the AFC, how top-heavy it is. And I went and looked, you know, yesterday we talked about how close these Chiefs are winning by and how they're frauds or they're fake undefeated, if that's a thing. And so I went and looked at the other teams in the AFC to compare them to what we talked about yesterday with the fourth quarter, you know, double-digit leads and trailing in the fourth quarter. Because we talked about that yesterday. The Chiefs in the 7 games have held a double-digit fourth quarter lead in 4 of the 7. And they have trailed the entire season combined in the fourth quarter. The entire season combined in the fourth quarter, 9 minutes and 28 seconds. They have trailed. So I went and looked at that with Buffalo, Baltimore, and Houston, just to see what the comparison is of the, fake teams and frauds and things like that. Not saying that they are, but just in comparison to what the Chiefs have done and sort of the commentary around that. So we'll get into that here in just a little bit. I also want to talk about the college football playoff and college football just in general as to what do the three teams have left to play for. We know what K-State has to play for. That one's obvious. KU, Mizzou. It's weird that the records are massively different, yet the feeling is somewhat the same between the fan bases of like, well, wasted, this season's lost. Missouri has a chance to go 10-2, and it's like, it was a lost season. Who cares, 10-2?
No, they're not, because we know they're not going 10-2. That's what it comes down to. I know you have to play the games and all that stuff.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean,
is Brady Cook all of a sudden healthy now?
I don't know. They got the bye week, and we're not going to hear anything until probably the day before. We won't know until a week from Friday. We're going to know who the president is before we know if Brady Cook is playing in the next game, okay?
Wow. Great. Wow.
So I don't know if he's going to be playing or not. But I want to talk about that here in just a little bit. Let's start off with the World Series, though.
Yeah.
The Yankees extend the series. They can make history tonight. Did you know the Yankees can make history tonight? I didn't realize this until Buster Olney this morning said it. Jack, you seem to know. Sterling, do you know how the Yankees can make history tonight?
By being the biggest. I'm not gonna say it.
Nope, they've done that before already. Yeah. I didn't realize this because we've seen it in championship series before, but the Yankees would be the first team in the history of the World Series to trail 3-0 and force a Game 6. To force even a Game 6 after trailing 3-0 in the World Series. I was staggered this morning by hearing that. Like, we see it in championship series and things like that. Oh, you're down 3-0, you come back and you lose in 6. The Red Sox down 3-0, they come back and win it. But I didn't realize how often it's either a sweep or the team down 3-0 gets one game and then goes quietly into that dark night.
And on top of that, there have been at least, I think, 24 or 26 3-0 leads in the World Series history of baseball, and there's only been 3 wins after. So if they came back and tied the series, they would match the entire history of baseball's wins in a 0-3 hole.
Yeah, so 3 wins total after being down 0-3.
Throughout the history of baseball.
Yeah, and all 3 of those are in different series.
Yes.
Because it's only been a Game 5. You got Garrett Cole on the mound, so it could be Game 6. The money I bet on the Dodgers in 6 would say, I'm fine either way tonight. I'm fine if the Yankees win because then I can win some money because I don't think they'll win in Game 6. I'm fine if the Yankees lose because I'm always fine if the Yankees lose. But they do win last night, and I would have really enjoyed the Yankees getting swept. That would have been really nice, All that fight to get there and the talk. And
even the Mets got to win. I had that ready. I had it ready.
The Mets have a World Series win, have more World Series wins since 2010 than the Yankees do. But now the Mets would have as many if the Dodgers win tonight. What's the story last night? Is it Volpe and the great, the picture they were showing of him in the 2009 World Series parade and the hometown kid gets a grand slam in a home game?
The home run that's only out in one ballpark? That one?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Is it Volpe? Is it Freddie Freeman? And 6 straight World Series games he's hit a home run? Or is it the Jackwads in right field that were kicked out of the game and did something that maybe it's happened before. I've never seen that before. We've seen Bartman and we've seen Game 1 we saw Gleyber Torres, or Game 2, whichever it was, Gleyber Torres with the fan interference when the guy reached over the wall and caught the ball. And they called fan interference and they put Torres at second. And that guy was escorted out, he and his son. That sucks. You escort him out for that. I get it. It's the rules. But what do you think the story is from last night? Because I feel like the most talked about thing is nationally, in this order, fans, Freeman, Volpe. And I think that's the order because the Yankees were down 3-0. And the Volpe home run, when we look back in 10 years, if the Dodgers win tonight, will be, a fart in the wind. A real cool moment for Yankees fans and there, but nationally, who cares? It's a really cool local story there. What's the story coming out of last night with the Yankees extending the series one game at least?
I kind of feel like it has to be the fans because we hadn't seen something like that before. We've seen the Bartman play. There's been fan interference at Yankee Stadium. You go back years ago for that, but this was different, right, man? This was...
Is that Jeffrey Mayer? Was that the
yes,
Yankees
Jeffrey Mayer,
with
yes.
the Orioles?
This was different because...
God, I can't believe I remember the kid's name. What is he doing these days? Like, Jeffrey Mayer, what is he doing?
His name one more time, Jeffrey Mayer?
Jeffrey Mayer was the little kid.
Aier?
I think it was that, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, he was the kid, the Yankees fan in right field that pulled the Yankee home run into the stands that was going to be an out or off the wall.
40-year-old father of 3 who has worked in technology sales for years. It looks like he got to relive his fan interference drama 4 days ago via New York Post. I don't know how. I'm not going to click on the article.
God, I wish he was one of the guys in right field. That'd have been great. But anyway, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, I think, everybody's going to be looking at the guy that looked like he was from Wallace and Gromit that was fighting with the ball over Mookie Betts. I'm more so looking at the guy that grabbed Mookie's hand and was, like, ripping it away.
Yeah.
It's like his best friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing on so many levels. A, stupidity, because they probably spent thousands of dollars on those seats, and they're ejected by the bottom of the first inning. Now, I don't know what Yankee Stadium or Major League Baseball decided. They should be banned for good. They shouldn't be allowed in any baseball stadium again because this is something that, truthfully, as much as you can laugh about it, about them getting pats on the back and Mookie Betts wasn't hurt. Like, obviously, if Mookie got hurt, we're talking about a different thing here.
Yeah.
But this is a part of the game where you can't interfere with players like that. If you do what Steve Bartman did, yeah, Moises Alou will get pissed off, but he didn't do anything harmful to Moises Alou.
Yeah, Bartman did what almost everybody in the stands would have done.
Correct.
Almost everybody in the stands would have done the exact same thing that Bartman did. I've seen 2 people do what the Yankees fans did last night, and those were those 2 guys.
It's uncalled for, right? It's uncalled for because at that point you are putting the player at risk and reaching and grabbing their hand and ripping it away. Who knows what could happen like that? But, are we really surprised? Are we really surprised at all that not only did they get ejected immediately, but 2, they're getting hugs from fans on the way back.
High fives, standing ovations.
These are the worst people.
Celebrated.
After the game, they talked about this.
Yeah, I saw the AP story, yeah.
Capobianco, whatever the guy's name is, says, quote, "We always joke about the ball in our area. We're not going to get out of our way to attack, but if it's in our area, we're going to D up." Do you think you're in the game?
Right.
And not only that, there's a guy 2 spots down from him wearing those sliding mitts. What, you think the Yankees are going to call on you for a pinch runner? Yankees fans are the worst. These are a reason why. Gosh, I am having an aneurysm right now.
Wow.
Like,
You okay?
you're
Can we get a doctor?
You're gonna D up. You're a fan at a game. Who do you think you are, guy? Like, and again, they weren't booed. They weren't like, yeah, we're not going to claim these guys. People were taking pictures with them.
Austin Capobianco and John Peter, the AP caught up with them at a local bar, and ESPN, and the story that ESPN put up there late last night, early this morning. Austin Capobianco was the guy who grabbed Mookie Betts' glove. John Peter, his friend, is the one that grabbed his arm to keep Mookie from reaching into to push his friend Austin off of him. They are Yankee season ticket holders. That's where they stand every game, is that spot. So it will be very easy to see if they're allowed back tonight. They have tickets for Game 5. And as Sterling said there, they told the AP at a local bar after the game, we always joke about the ball in our area. We're not going to go out of our way to attack. If it's in our area, we're going to D up. Someone defends, someone knocks the ball. We talk about it. We're willing to do this.
Was it Kawhi Leonard and Giannis Antetokounmpo? What is going on here?
He went on to say, I know when I'm in the wrong, and as soon as I did it, I was like, boys, I'm out of here. I patrol the wall, and they know that. Capobianco told ESPN. Capobianco and Peter were escorted out of Yankee Stadium, but said they were told they would be allowed back for Game 5 on Wednesday. The Yankees did not immediately respond to ESPN's request for comment regarding if that was indeed the case. I would give it I would give it a less than 0% chance, a negative % chance that these guys are allowed back in. We'll be able to see. I mean, they're in right field. They've got the same seats. Those are their season tickets. They stand there every game. They patrol the wall, apparently.
And it's not Fox News' decision, so they're not going to not show these guys and talk about it on air.
Right. I mean, it's just like they are going to, they're going to show the guys. They're going to show the wall. And there's no way, even if Yankee Stadium and security was wanting to allow them back, I don't think there's any way Major League Baseball allows that. Because you can't send a message to the rest of the fans and to your players that would be okay, and the person would return the next. We're talking about lifetime bans.
Yes.
I think just upon stupidity, they should be banned too, because in what mind frame do you think they're going to go to New York and look at this on the camera and see what you're doing and come back from the booth review and say, yep, he dropped the ball. There was no, once you kind of go past swatting the glove and you're trying to reach in and pry the ball out, it is assault. I'm sorry.
They would do it again.
Well, yeah, that's what he said.
That's my whole point. How do you let him back? They would clearly do this again. This is not like, yeah, guys, we were wrong. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. I patrol that wall. They know that. I'm going to D
We're ready
up.
to D up if somebody
they're
comes
going to do it again.
I mean, I understand.
What?
I understand if the ball is a row deep, they go to the wall and the guy's trying to reach over to catch it. Well, that's territory where the fan can jump up and catch it anyway. You just can't reach out over the wall. So if he's saying that, no, we're going to go and reach for the ball. We're going to make sure that this guy, if we're up to bat, and we're going to make sure that they. But that was
basically trying to injure a guy.
Grabbed the arm and pulled him back in. I don't know. I watched the video again this morning because I watched it a couple times last night and then this morning again. But one thing that I didn't notice, and I don't know who the bigger tool is in all of this, is it Austin Capabianco who grabbed the glove? Is it John Peter who then grabbed Mookie's right arm and held that so that Mookie couldn't push Austin Capabianco off of him? Or is it the guy standing to Austin's right wearing the sliding mitt?
I told you the sliding mitt guy is also kind of bugging me.
Is it the guy wearing the sliding mitt in the stands that's standing next to those guys? Who's the bigger tool there? Because I kind of feel like it's the sliding mitt guy. I want to say these other two, but then when I saw the sliding mitt this morning, I'm like, oh my God. I thought it was a cast last night. I thought the guy had a cast on his hand. And then I saw a little bit closer. I'm like, this dude's got a neon green sliding mitt on his right hand.
This incident reminds me, have you guys seen the movie Celtic Pride with Dan Aykroyd and Marlon Wayans? These fans remind me so much of what they are. Where if you haven't seen the movie, Dan Aykroyd and I think Daniel Stern is the other actor. They kidnap Marlon Wayans, who's on the Jazz. They're playing the Celtics in the finals, and they kidnap him so the Celtics can win the NBA Finals. And as they go throughout the movie, they basically find out that, hey, maybe we're a little bit too involved in sports and we think we're a part of the team. And that's what these guys clearly think. They actually believe, I can imagine right now, they got a Derek Jeter shower curtain in there. Everything in their apartment is Yankees. They've got Yankees cereal. Everything about it is just diehard Yankees fan, and they live for that, which is why, again, I mean, if you're going to take the approach of, no, I was playing defense. We all play defense out there where we're sitting. I mean, you might as well do that and don't apologize because nobody's going to forgive you. Nobody's going to have sympathy for you. So for Yankees fans, I will always say they play the villain role right. They know that in an incident like that, they're not going to apologize or feel bad or outcast that fan because even if they did, nobody thinks differently of Yankees fans. So they always play that villain role perfectly because when that happens, what's happening on the way out of the stadium? High fives,
I
hugs,
hate
selfies.
Yankees fans. Gosh,
Selfies.
I'm so
They do it well, though.
irritated.
They do it well.
I'm so angry right now.
Can we hear? Was it?
Adam Dravetta just texted us that they are the people in Wedding Crashers taking football too
Bradley
seriously,
Cooper.
and that is the exact spot.
Hot route. Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does. Well done, Adam. Here's Mookie Betts postgame at his locker in the clubhouse talking about the fan interaction and his comments on it.
It's irrelevant. We lost. It doesn't matter.
Mookie, just how is that hand feeling? Because it kind of looked like, from our perspective, that your wrist kind of went a little bit back.
No, I didn't even know he grabbed my hand, so no, it's perfectly fine.
Was that about as aggressive as you've seen fans in all your time in the game?
When it comes to the person in play, it doesn't matter. We lost. It's irrelevant. I'm fine. He's fine. Everything's cool. the game. We lost the game, and that's what I'm kind of focused on. We got to turn the page and get ready for tomorrow.
I mean,
Mookie Betts to hit a home run tonight, ripping that.
here's the other thing with these two dudes. They found a guy in right field that wasn't going to fight back. Jurickson Profar was taunting the fans. I mean, we saw Malice at the Palace. Tommy Pham is a Royal. Like, I don't know.
Tommy Pham would have killed him.
A New Day mentioned that this morning, and I'm like, man, that's absolutely. I like how many.
Tommy Pham would have pulled them over the railing onto the field, and then
Yes,
then it
and
would have
then
been serious.
carried the dude off with him. Or just stood over there and shadow boxed while the security was escorting him out. I don't know which one would have been funnier. I'm not sure.
Kyle Farnsworth, if he was a right fielder, would thrown hands.
Yeah.
He actually, even if he was the pitcher, if Kyle Farnsworth was the pitcher in this situation, he may have gone out to right field.
I love like the security on in right field or the ball boy or whatever it was. When that happened, he walked down and his hands were up like at the Yankees field. Like, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? And that was like the ball boy. That was like, what the hell are you doing, man? You can't grab the guy's arm. But yeah, Yankees fans were Yankees fans. And on Monday they got pretty quick karma with the FU Freddie in the first inning, and then he hits a home run on the very next pitch on the FU Freddie in the first inning, and then they get this one. And
how insane is that, by the way? That
Freddie
Freeman,
6
straight World Series games he's hit a home run in.
He's played in 10 World Series games. He's batting .343. He's getting on base at .385. He's slugging .943. He's OPSing at 1.3 with 6 home runs and 14 RBIs in 10 World Series games. Freddie Freeman.
Jack, just your numbers guy. Is that good? Can you confirm?
I'd have to pull it up on my computer, but some would tell me that's pretty good, above average.
Get that TI-80 out and do
So
some
the
math.
top 4 batting averages all time in World Series: Barry Bonds 700, David Ortiz 576, Phil Garner 571, Max Carey 552.
Christian Colon 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, come on, how are we doubting that guy?
Never been out.
Not my bad.
How many did Barry Bonds play in though? That's also like he batted
Yeah, that is
700
true.
or so.
2002.
That is true.
That's what I'm saying.
2002, I think, was the only one, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
So yeah, it doesn't really say how many games.
Like
It's
a
kinda
minimum
just,
10 games
Yeah.
is he the leader in that
Good
one.
qualifier.
Thank you. Who's got the highest batting average in the World Series for Royals players? Because back in the day, they played in
Two.
Is it the
seven-
free space?
think
Is it the-
7 games.
Probably would have been Brett.
Yeah.
13
That's
games.
what I'm saying. Is it the bingo free space we always use?
Yeah.
Or
This group was 12. This group was 12 games that they played in 14 and 15.
So I know you can look up
And then in
batting.
the previous group was 13 games, right? 6 and 80, and then 7 and 85.
Salvi won the MVP in 2015.
He batted like 340 that.
That
those
year,
5
but I don't think
games.
he was good in the Giants series.
No, I don't think he was either.
In 2 World Series appearances for George Brett in 13 games, he hit .373.
I'm going to say that's the. I'm going to say that.
On base 439, slugged 529 for an OPS of 968.
I'm going to say that. I'm going to say
I'll
it's the
say
free
that
space.
guy.
I'm going to say the free space, as we typically call it in sports or leisure. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone next. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB 913-912-4810. Text says Amir Garrett would have jumped into the stands and fought the entire section by himself.
True.
Only if Detroit Tigers got benched. Bad contract.
Baez.
Javi Baez.
Only if Javi Baez was one of the fans up there. Then Amir Garrett would absolutely have jumped up into the stands and done that. No doubt about it. 913-912-4810. Text says, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Great text.
We use words like Jeets, Mantle, Coafor.
Jeets is great. You know they call him
Yeah,
Jeets.
Jeets. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll talk with Cynthia Freeland coming up at 11 o'clock, and then we'll get into a little college football after that. No Chiefs today because they play on Monday, so everything pushed back a day for them. We talked a little bit about it yesterday at or maybe it was Monday, I'm not sure. Oh, no, it was before we had Todd Lebo on in the 1 o'clock hour yesterday. We played the clips from Rob Manfred saying that one of the rules changes that that has the most traction is limiting the number of pitchers on a roster. They were at 14, now they're at 13, and then down to 12. And if that's the case, one of the things that we talked about is putting more of an emphasis on what the Royals would do with their starting pitchers and what they have available that's out there versus what they have on their own team. Does it make sense to work something out with Michael Wacha to make the qualifying offer? Does it make sense to extend Brady Singer? Do you, trade one of your pieces for another high-end starter if you feel like, okay, now we're only going to have 7 bullpen pieces total? Do you trade Brady Singer if you work something out with Michael Wacha and you feel good about Kyle Wright and Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo and maybe Alec Marsh? Does Singer bring back something that can go in your lineup, or a left fielder, or a third baseman, or a leadoff man? That would be – I would wonder if they would be more interested or more willing to trade Singer if this rule doesn't pass. But if the rule passes and they're down to 12 pitchers total, at that point, can you afford to trade Singer? If now there's going to be even – I think they always want to have 7 or 8 starters. But if you're limiting the guys in the bullpen, essentially, then you've got to have starters that can go deep into games. And Brady Singer, 150 innings, 160 innings? He may be inconsistent, but the one thing he's consistent about is every 5 days he's taken the mound. That becomes incredibly valuable if this rule passes. I think maybe the strategy on Brady Singer specifically may change for the Royals if they can only have 12 pitchers on their team.
Great question. I'll let Jack go first with this, but I thought of something very funny. Jordan Lyles' value just skyrocketed because Jordan Lyles you can put as a long reliever and you can stretch him out if you need to. Jordan Lyles, the innings eater, this is his dream right now.
Yeah, I think it puts more emphasis on the Royals going and getting and making sure their starting staff is set, which means Michael Wacha. What do you do with that? Or if Michael Wacha is too expensive, do you go out and try to find a couple of 4th or 5th starters? 3 or 4 Singers and Marshes that if somebody goes down, then you've got somebody in the minors ready to go.
Yeah, I think as things stand right now, I'm going to be pretty surprised if the Royals don't work out something with Michael Wacha. I don't think he's going to take that qualifying offer, but I could see him working out a 2 or 3 year deal anywhere from 17 to 18 million to stay in Kansas City because I think he likes it here. I think the Royals really like what he was able to give them as the number 3 starter. When it comes to Brady Singer, I think it's mainly going to come down to what they view Alec Marsh as.
Yeah.
If Alec Marsh is somebody they truly believe can take a big step forward in year 3, then I think you look into something of, okay, let's go give Michael Lorenzen a 1-year, $9 to $10 million deal. He becomes our 4. Marsh is our 5. Let's flip Brady Singer for a bat in our lineup. If you don't believe Alec Marsh can take that jump or Michael Lorenzen signs elsewhere, I don't think you have that luxury to trade away Brady Singer because I'm not moving Chris Bubich out of the bullpen. I know a lot of people have asked about that, but this is the best he's ever looked.
Yeah.
Why go and try to stretch him out to be a number 4, number 5 when the 8th inning is very valuable to this team, and he can be somebody that can give you that. Daniel Lynch finally has found consistency in his career. No need to move him back into the rotation, so it's really about Alec Marsh, in my opinion. If you believe he makes that jump, then you can make that trade. But if you don't believe he can be that guy or you want to try Alec Marsh in the bullpen, I think you got to hang on to Brady Singer.
Yeah, and if you're looking at maybe, $10 million for Brady Singer in arbitration, a sub-4 ERA, 150 innings, almost a strikeout per 9. I mean, he's got 2 years of arbitration left, right? So this year and then one more year. So I would guess $10 million that you'd be paying Brady Singer. So is it worth the $10 million? Do you go arbitration year by year? Or do you give him a 2-year deal and say we're just going to buy out arbitration so we've got a set cost? Do we give him a 3-year deal and therefore you've got a year of free agency? Do you trade him while he's got 2 years of arbitration left so another team can figure out if they want to go the arbitration route? But I would guess like $10 million. So Brady Singer for $10 million this year to take the mound every 5 days and give you roughly a 4 ERA inconsistently. Hopefully he doesn't take a step back in what he's looked like in the past.
Sure.
But even if he looks like this, not the last 11 or 12 starts of the season when he had, the 5 ERA. But if he looks close to this and he's a 4 or 5, 4th or 5th starter at $10 million and he's going to give you 150 innings in a season and, 8.6 strikeouts per 9, and for the most part keep you in games, is that worth $10 million? Like you said, 1 year, $9 million for Michael Lorenzen, or, the arbitration 1 year for Brady Singer at $10 million. What's better value, or is it a better value that 1 year, $9 million for Lorenzen and then moving Brady Singer to help you out somewhere else that would be more expensive than $10 million?
Sure, and that's a great point of what would he bring back because of the arbitration. Again, there's just, to me, I think it's a little fascinating phenomenon on what Brady Singer is. Some people just absolutely love him, and some think he's an absolute bum. And I'm like, he had a 3.71 ERA, 32 starts, 180 innings.
180, so I said 150, but 180 innings, yeah.
I mean, he was really, really good. Like, I know he's not a 1, he's not a 2, but for a 4, every single team outside, even the Dodgers would have loved that this year because he was consistent. He was out there.
Well, if he was a free agent right now, I mean, he'd be one of the top free agents if you said this guy had 180 innings, 3.7 ERA, almost, I don't know what it was, 8-something in strikeouts per 9.
He had 179.2 innings and 170 strikeouts. Yeah. I just don't get that. I feel like we've lost the plot or the narrative with Brady Singer, and he's a really good 4, bordering on a 3 almost. For his career, he has a 4.28 ERA. Again, I'm not saying he's an ace. I'm not saying he's a 2, but I'm saying he's a very valuable piece. He's not as consistent as we'd like. It's going to be a very inconsistent how he's going to get to the 4. He's going to have games where he goes out for 7 innings, no earned runs. He'll have a game where he goes out and throws 4 innings and gets shelled. That's Brady Singer. That's all 4s around Major League Baseball. And again, if this does pass, you can still have Alec Marsh. That long reliever role is going to be very, very important. You're going to want to have 6 or even 7 starters. You're going to have your core 5, and then you're going to have that was a horrible
core 5, the core 4.
But you're going to want to have like an Alec Marsh as your long reliever. You're going to have that in your bullpen.
Do we think he's closer to what he was in 2022 and what he was this last year, or is he closer to 2023? Like, what's the outlier? 2023 with the 5.5 ERA and the ERA plus of 80. Or 2022 when he had a 3.2 ERA and ERA plus of 127. This year, a 3.7 and an ERA plus of 114.
And Baseball Savant's not a huge fan of Brady overall. They like his ground ball rate. They like his extension.
That's up to the Royals to figure out. What is he? Is he this guy? If he's this guy, then I think you'd arbitration him for a year or two and you keep him on your roster. If you think he's got 2023 on the horizon,
sell high.
Then you move on and you say to any team, look, if this guy was a free agent, you ain't paying $10 million for him. All right, you're not getting him on 1 year, $10 million deal or team control for 2 years at 10 and then 15. So 2 years, $25 million. Is that what Brady Singer would go for on the open market right now, or would he sign a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal for more than that because of his age? They have to figure out if he's this year or if he's 2023.
Well, I think, also with the state of this roster, I mean, who's the biggest trade chip? Who's going to get you a guy that moves the needle offensively? It might just be Brady Singer. I mean, you're not going to trade anybody in the bullpen that would get you a big return. Like, you're not flipping Lucas Erceg because you need Lucas Erceg. I look at Brady Singer and I say, great numbers. I would not complain if Brady Singer did the exact same thing in 2025. But you have to decide if that can be done. I mean, he threw how many pitches in the postseason? 5 or 6 to face Aaron Judge? Like, that was it. And that was a guy who was a number 3, number 4 in your rotation. So you look at the front 3, Reagans, Lugo, Waka, that's who you invest all of your attention into. And how did the Royals lose in the postseason? It wasn't starting pitching. It wasn't bullpen. It was this lineup. And if you go out there and have a splash in free agency for a bat, That's all fine and dandy, but you also may need to move the needle with a trade, and Brady Singer might be that best trade chip. And this might be the second highest his value has ever been, really after 2022 it was, because he had more years of control.
Yeah.
You could gamble on that, and maybe, a team like Cincinnati, for example, they took a step back this year because of injuries. They need to solidify their rotation. They may look at that number and say, hey, 180 innings for our number 3 guy sounds perfect. We could give you Jonathan India or something like that.
Ellie Cruz. I mean, who says no?
Yeah, go out there and really round out the infield. But to me, that's what you have to. That's what the good GMs do. Is they say, hey, that was a great year. We don't believe that's going to be replicated the next year, and therefore we got to capitalize on the value now.
Well, I was going to say, in just Cincinnati specifically, you think Brady would actually make sense there because he is one of the best ground ball pitchers in baseball, and in that ballpark, you can't be a fly ball pitcher. So Brady Singer actually might have some value there. If you're Cincy, you have to think of that because that ballpark, balls fly.
It's interesting because I was thinking of other teams that we're talking about. Pitching has been brutal, but they're stacked with play. Like Royals won the wild card against a team that is like, well, if they don't win with Corbin Burns, they're screwed. And that was that was the guy they went out and got. But man, they got bats on bats on bats. Like, is that somebody that? But it's interesting. You mentioned ground ball pitcher. It's like, well, would you rather have a fly ball pitcher there if you're in Baltimore? Because then you could take advantage of that. But this is what's going to be fascinating to me is, does he become more valuable to the Royals or more valuable as a trade piece?
Yeah.
If the rule gets passed that you can only have 12 pitchers on your roster, does that mean then the Royals say, well, we have to keep him now because there's more of an emphasis on those 5 starters? Or does that mean the Royals go, well, now we're selling pretty high, and he's become even more valuable because he's thrown 160 and 180 innings the last 2 years. He's gone to the mound 29 times last year and 32 times this past year. That's going to be valuable for a team that's looking at it and saying we have to make sure our 1 through 5 are pretty solidified, and that could be more important than, well, we got 14 offensive players. We got 14 position players. I just wonder, real quick before we take a break, Jack, is he more valuable to the Royals or more valuable to trade if they limit the pitchers to 12 on a roster?
I would say he's probably more valuable to hang on to, mainly just because I'm not sold that anybody can replace him right now. I'd love to say Alec Marsh is. I know I was high on Alec Marsh at the beginning of the year, but I'm not sold because he's not done it before. Brady Singer now twice in his big league career has done it. So if that's the rule that happens, I think you're better off holding on to him, but you also have to test the waters, and maybe there is somebody willing to buy high on a guy like Brady Singer.
And if there's a team that says, no, we think he's more the last 10 games and we think you're selling a guy who's a 5.5 ERA, we'll give you this and this, not worth it. If it's worth it, then do it. But if nobody's going to be willing to, the rule change I think is going to be interesting to see what it does for the starting pitcher market and what it may do for the bullpen market too. Like more money for closers and setup men, but middle relievers or long relievers. I don't know what it does for openers. Things like that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Jack Johnson, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Cynthia Freeland in the next segment. Get some NFL football with Cynthia. A lot of Chiefs talk, a lot of trade talk. Daniel Harms will be our guest coming up at noon. RGR Football and the Draft Network. And we'll get his thoughts on the trades for the Chiefs as well. And he did a YouTube video breakdown of Joshua Uche.
And a very important question Dylan and I have to ask him of who
That's
he
exactly
texted
right.
back first. We texted him at the exact same time.
And
the timestamp is the exact same that he texted us back at. But we got to know who was first.
I wanted you guys, I wanted the three of us to be, next to each other to see when the exact text came in. But what if he was working for an hour or something and didn't see it? Like, we weren't just going to sit here staring at the phones for an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that. It's
he texts us back like in the morning, just like, sorry guys, just saw this.
Somebody's got to stay up all night just to see who he texts back first. So the timestamp was the exact same for you guys, but we got to know
after dark.
We got to see like who he responded to first. It's a big question. It's a very big question, man. I mean, just like do you respond because you guys sent it the exact same time? So
yeah.
So there you go. 913-912-4810. That comes up at noon. That's the biggest question we'll ask him. Not about looking at all of the pass rush snaps for Joshua Uche the last couple of years and your breakdown of that. No. It's that. Those things don't matter. Those things don't matter at all with Daniel Harms. And then we'll talk some college football after Cynthia Freeland. I'm going to get into what's left to play for Mizzou and KU. Obviously, we know what's left to play for Kansas State, that they've got a college football playoff bid on the line, whether that being an at-large bid if things go their way and they were to lose in the Big 12 championship, or the number 4 seed and get a bye. You don't get a home game, but you don't have to play that first round if you're Kansas State. Like, it's a lot to play for the Wildcats, but we'll talk about what's left to play for Mizzou and KU as well. But Cynthia Freeland coming up next here in the Zone.
Freeland of NFL Network. Now in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels heading up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk a little college football in the next segment. Coming up tonight, 6 o'clock, Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold right here on Sports Radio 810. And then 7 o'clock, Game 5 of the World Series, Dodgers-Yankees 3-1. Dodgers lead. Yankees have a chance to make history. First team to be down 3-0 in a series and even force a Game 6 if they were to win tonight. You can hear that right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Major League Baseball playoff coverage brought to you by Greenlight Dispensary, greenlightdispensary.com for all premium cannabis products this playoffs. All right, let's talk some NFL football. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert, joins us here in the zone. Cynthia, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I am doing just fine. I want to get into some of the trades here in just a little bit, but let's start off with what we typically start off with, and that is just a general takeaway from the game that the Chiefs played. Yet another win. They're 7-0. They're undefeated. It's technically a one-score win. They were up 14 until the final garbage time touchdown by the Raiders. But what's the takeaway from the Chiefs getting the win over the Raiders over the weekend?
I mean, I think that part of what I liked to see about this one was, you know, you have a new player on the team. You're trying to integrate new looks. You still get Travis Kelce in the end zone, which was nice to see finally. But ultimately, the defense, they did not let up even for 1 minute against a team that could have easily been a sleepy one to get sleepy against. I'm trying to say that they're not very good. So it was, and I'm not doing it very well. But ultimately, you know, they didn't even let up for 1 minute. They stayed really sound fundamentally. Everything, there was, you know, limited yards after the catch, limited. There just was a lot of good things to like about this defense in a game where they could have taken a few plays off and really not had the score be impacted much.
When we've talked about Chiefs defenses in the past, you know, we talk about whether it's pass rush or limiting the pass. If the Chiefs are winning, then you know the other team is going to be passing the ball, so that's imperative that the Chiefs be really good against that. And it's not like they struggle against that, but they have been like next level dominant against the run, and especially the opposing team's main running back. In a year like this year, or even like last year, you know, when scoring is down and maybe the passing offense isn't as elite and dynamic as it's been in the past, how much of an advantage is that maybe for a team like the Chiefs or whichever team out there that has such a grasp and what feels like a stranglehold on the other team's ability to run the football?
I mean, for whatever reason, between O-line play, I mean, for the Raiders, O-line play is not a strength. But, you know, for whatever reason, there are very few teams this year who really have sound offensive lines. There's a ton of false start penalties, more than we're even usually used to seeing. There's just so many things that are putting people in these like 1st and 20 and 1st and 15, for example, situations. So if you can't run to even get yourself 4, 5, 7 yards on those first, second down plays, you're really behind the 8 ball. So stopping that forces the defense into knowing you're going to pass the ball. And that just makes things easier on the defensive side of it, where you're just playing this game of, well, if then, right? If you line up like this, it can't be that. If you're just process of eliminating things. It's
interesting, yeah. If then, I like that. And Steve Spagnuolo always he calls it having the chalk last at the chalkboard, which I love that term. I love that term with Steve Spagnuolo, and he prides himself on trying to have the chalk last, and that's why they try to have as many smart players as they can out on the field. And Nick Bolton, whether he might be worth the extension or not that he may get, or just re-signed in the offseason. But Justin Reed, also a guy that, you know, do they bring him back or not? Those are two incredibly bright guys on the defense, and I don't think it's any surprise that, you know, you've got some guys that are that smart and know where everybody's supposed to be on the field, and with a Steve Spagnuolo defense that can be that intricate. And oftentimes it allows the Chiefs to have the chalk last when those guys are out there.
I mean, the funny part is we talk about like continuity being important. Well, continuity in a more complex system is even more important, right? Usually you see the Chiefs defense get better year over year, week over week as it goes on, but now it's like year over year. Now we're seeing like a lot of the same players being able to really execute well. I mean, I would say in this game, like Drew Tranquil probably, like if I had to say who like really stood out, when I'm watching Drew Tranquill back, it's like, okay, well, felt like he knew exactly where the, Raiders were going to go on every single play, and just was like, you know what, like, I'm just going to take one step ahead. It's like he had the game plan, or he could hear what was being called. He's like, all right, I'll just get there right here. It's all good.
Yeah, no, I mean, and a couple of times you're right that he was able to do that, and he did play probably his best game of the season. He was really good, and that goal line stand, he had a couple of big plays. One play at least that was really big that sort of changed that whole game. The Raiders could have gone up 20-17. Instead, they go 4 and out and end with the sack, and the Chiefs go 90 yards, 9 minutes, and only put a field goal on the board, but essentially take control of that game. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. Okay, so one of the things that has been brought up this year multiple times, and then a little more, in that conversation, is the Chiefs win by a score over the Raiders. Their margin for victory this year is just barely over 7. So like 7.14 is the margin for victory. Margin of victory this year. They are 7-0. Here's a stupid question in the NFL, but I'll ask it anyway because oftentimes it's like, don't put yourself in one-score games. But are they winning games by enough points to make you feel comfortable that they will continue to do that?
I mean, the answer to me is yes. Do I think bettors in Vegas are annoyed with that if they're not picking the right side of the spread? Sure, why not, right? Because this is a team with enough talent to be blowing people out of the water every single time. But I don't think that it matters so much. Like these like backdoor covers or these last-minute scores are like not super problematic. And because you have to remember, sometimes it's better to like not go out there and force a goal line stand with every single ounce of your being when you can let them score and kneel down and take it away, right? Like these are the types of things where you're like, let's be smart. Like sometimes being really smart is figuring out like, this is not worth putting up a huge amount of fight for, right? Like this particular play, right? Like you're not gonna 8 points is 8 points. Like it's a big deal, and being able to be safe and healthy on those plays, like getting through the season with like stop this injury situation, it's a bigger deal.
No
it's
kidding.
a bigger deal.
Yeah. I do like when I look at college basketball, I brought up this example on Monday that when I'm looking at a college basketball bracket and trying to figure out who's going to win the national championship, there are a couple things that I do look at. I think margin of victory matters. If you're in a one-score game, basketball's such a make-or-miss game. Ball's in the air. If it goes in, you win. If it doesn't, you lose. Well, the whole game can come down to that one shot. But also, like, do you have multiple ways to win a game? Can you play a game if the other team's going to slow it down? Can you play an up and down game? Can you play a game if they're going to press? Can you play a game if they're going to try to make it half court? Like, can you win some of those games different ways? And the teams that can do that, those are the ones that I typically will, move on further into the tournament or win the whole thing. And with the Chiefs, the margin of victory isn't necessarily there compared to Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo's, margin of victory is 10.5, or at least if you take their point differential, divide it by the 8 games they've played, it's 10.5 per game is essentially what the score differential is. Only they have 2 losses to go along with that. The Chiefs are, 3.5 points, less, but they have no losses to go along with that. And I believe the Chiefs, I believe they can be a team that can put on the skin of we have to outscore an opponent in this particular game. They haven't really had to do it, but I think if they did need to, they could be that team. Do you think this Chiefs team is equipped, as it stands right now? We'll see what DeAndre Hopkins does as he gets more integrated, but as it stands right now, if the streak of 28 straight games where the defense has given up fewer than 28 points is broken, are the Chiefs equipped that they can, outscore a team in the 30s?
I think so, yeah. I'm not worried about their ability to do so. I actually think strategically it's not the stupidest thing in the world to not show your entire playbook. Like, I keep telling the Lions to slow it down and stop showing us these different looks. Like, I'm losing my mind. Same thing with the Bills this past week, because ultimately what you're doing then is you're putting on tape. Like, I think of, remember that Cardinals team a couple of years ago, Cliff Kingsbury at the helm, and they were 9-0, right? They were the last team without a loss. And part of the reason they were doing that is they were pulling out they pulled all of the rabbits out of the hat early on. And I'm like, maybe that that's not great. I mean, I know Andy Reid has such a deep playbook. I'm not worried about them not having enough separate plays, but no need to give anyone a jump on what you want to do or like to do. Win the game. Don't worry about the margin, insofar as it's at least controllable, right? Like if it was maybe not that one where, you needed against the Bengals where you needed to like goal line stand to make it stop. Like that one was a little close for comfort. But other than that, I don't think it's smart to show. I think it's smart to stay conservative on offense and let them. 15's there. They know. You don't need to prove anything to anybody.
They won by a combined 17 points the last 2 weeks. And so, all right, 8.5 points per game, the margin of victory. And it's like, okay, well, is it comfortable? But like, even if we look at the 17 points, San Francisco was down by 16 late in the game with like, a minute and a half left. They would have had to score, get a 2-point conversion, onside kick, score,
that's right,
2-point conversion, then win in overtime. The Raiders were down by 14, and they would have had to score, get an onside kick, score, and either go for 2 and get it to win or win in overtime. Like, the 17 points total, but the context of that is a little bit different on how close those games really were there in the fourth quarter when it matters.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, and think about all of those things, the probability of all of those things, but also the possibility that on any one of like freak plays are where people get hurt. So like I am saying like minimize the freak play exposure, so you don't like when you're having, like think about that Washington, the 52-yarder we saw from Jaden Daniels, like Terry Stevenson, he's not he made a mistake, right? Like he should have been paying attention, but like even if he had been paying attention, it could have easily, the same result could have happened, right? That's a freak play. Like, don't put yourself in that situation, but also that's where people get hurt too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they really haven't. I mean, I looked it up. Was it Monday night? I guess because today's Wednesday, so we talked about it yesterday on the show. But since week 3, Cynthia, so since the Atlanta game, they've played 4 games. So since week 3, the defense has been on the field in the fourth quarter to protect a 1-score lead, only 3 possessions. They have been put out there in the fourth quarter with their team leading by 1 score. And those 3 possessions, Cynthia, the Chargers went 3 and out and gained 1 yard. The Chargers picked up 1 first down and then punted, gaining 11 yards. And then the Raiders this past weekend on the second play of that drive fumbled for a total of 7 yards, meaning in the fourth quarter since week 3, Cynthia, the Chiefs defense in a 1-score game in the fourth quarter has faced the opposition 10 plays and given up 19 yards, 2 punts, and a turnover.
Yeah, so that doesn't seem right. Like that seems.
It doesn't seem like they're squeaking by, right? It doesn't seem like, oh my God, these games are so close, and how can they keep doing this? And everything's this house of cards is gonna fall apart, right around the corner because they just are squeaking by there in the fourth quarter. It's like, sometimes the final score isn't necessarily indicative of what was going on in that game, and certainly this past weekend is that, especially for somebody that had Raiders under 19.5 points. I don't know who had that, but especially if they had that one.
I don't know either. I mean, if you find that person, it's very interesting.
Find that person, give them a shoulder massage because they earned it, okay? That was rough, all right, if you find them.
That's right.
Cynthia Freeland is our guest. This is the chicken or the egg question that happens all the time. The Chiefs traded for Joshua Uche from the New England Patriots, and they've had some pass rushing issues outside of when they blitz, and they now have a cornerback issue opposite Trent McDuffie. And we were wondering around here, getting Charles Omenihu back, okay, do they then, if they make another move, is that for a cornerback? Well, it depends on what the cost acquisition is each and every time we talk about these things. But back to front to back, building a defense, pass rush to help the secondary, great secondary to help the pass rush. It seems like the Chiefs looked at it, maybe looked at the market and said, we bring in Uche, we get after the passer a little bit easier, maybe with less blitzes. That will then help the back end versus what the cornerback market might look like. Does it matter to you one way or another? Do you have a preference? If it's we get after the quarterback quicker so it helps out the young secondary, we bring in guys in the secondary, which will help out our lack of pass rush outside of blitzing?
I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, right? Like the market dictates what is the better choice here. And obviously, look, do you know how many teams need corners right now? Because, like, the answer is, like, 32 because everyone needs one.
True,
And
yeah.
all teams need pass rushers, too. I was actually very surprised that the Chiefs were able to acquire Josh Uche, given what I would have thought was, other people asking for his services, too, right? So, it's very, especially for what they got him for. It's not like they had to give away too much to acquire him at all. Again, Brett Veach, magician, possibly. So, but ultimately here, if the corner market, if there would have been a corner they could have acquired for something that would have made sense, I'm sure they would have done it, right? It's just they're not hanging out on street corners, being able to just be bought easily, right? So,
what do you think of?
Not easy to find.
What do you think of my theory as to why I think Uche was available to the Chiefs, and that's what it cost, and maybe other teams weren't necessarily in the market for that? My theory is because he seems like such a situational player. He's a pass rusher, plays 30% of the snaps, not necessarily a run defender. That teams need pass rushing help, but how many teams need just specifically a guy that can come in situationally and pass rush? Like the Lions need to find somebody to help out for Aiden Hutchinson. Well,
Sure.
That guy was one of the best in the league, so you're not finding him, but can they come close to finding a 3-down defensive end that can help out in the run and also in the pass? The Chiefs are so good against the run that there's not a skill set that they need from a defensive end out there to stop the run. They do that already. So the way that they're built, and with them going for it this year and in contention and not selling and the middle class sort of non-existent, that they would be uniquely in a position for his skill set. That is, we don't need him to stop the run at all. We're going to be leading. We need him to get after the passer, so we blitz a little bit less. So we want his skill set that's just playing 30% of the snaps, and we'll trade a draft pick for it, where another team might go, we're going to wait and try to find a defensive end that can give us first and second down production as well.
It's possible. However, I would argue that there's enough teams that would say, we'll take anything at this point. As
Any port in a storm?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, even a situational guy, even like that is, for many teams, that would be a big upgrade. So while I agree that it is a superb fit with the Chiefs, I just think other people also would have been like, oh, well, I'll take 30% of snaps. That's better than zero.
Right.
So,
because if we're a good team and we're leading, we need pass rushers. I couldn't believe what they got him for, because it's essentially nothing when it comes to the cap hit, but also trading a 6th rounder in the 2026 draft. If he signs a multi-year deal somewhere after this year, they would give up a 6th, get a 7th back for a guy that's going to give you pass rush ability to go for a 3-peat, and not really pay much.
Think about this. Even in your own conference, there could have been the Ravens. They can't rush the passer, and then go to the NFC South. The Falcons, they could use a situational passer. Like it's not like there aren't. I could name 5 teams that could, even just for 30% of snaps, really justify a 6th round. Like I don't know. Yeah. Like, listen, whatever they're doing, fine for the Chiefs. Like, I don't know. I think the Chiefs won that one, and it's not close.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it, a huge fan of it, because I like Uche, and I would have liked to see them go out and get him. I liked him coming out of the draft from Michigan, and so we'll see what he can bring to the table. He was awesome when he had Matthew Judon that was rushing the passer as well, and now he's got Chris Jones. And Karloff has been pretty good the last couple of weeks, too. And he's got Spags that likes to bring blitzes in different ways and create mismatches and things like that. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table. Cynthia Freeland is our guest. There have been a number of trades with some bigger names over the last couple of weeks. Amari Cooper to Buffalo, Devontae Adams to the Jets, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, Deontay Johnson now to Baltimore, Uche to the Chiefs, Cam Robinson to Minnesota. I'm going to separate Hopkins and Uche, because I think the answer would be easy if you say, what are the most impactful trades? Well, the Chiefs getting Hopkins and Uche, as opposed to a team getting a wide receiver. Right. That would be the answer. Right. But I'm separating Uche and Hopkins, so either one of those could be the right answer. Of those 6 trades that I mentioned, Cooper, Adams, Hopkins, Deontay Johnson, Cam Robinson, Uche, which one do you think, would you guess, or would be the leading candidate to have the biggest impact on that particular team?
I know it's going to sound crazy, but I actually do think it's DeAndre Hopkins, because the Chiefs have, it's crazy because I like O linemen, so Cam Robinson is a big deal for me. But
what's his booty like, Cam Robinson?
It's massive. It's a massive boot. But it does. I mean, Sam Darnold clearly needs the protection. Like that was a huge loss with Christian Darrisaw. So I will say that one's important in the NFC North, especially where the margins are pretty razor thin there. But I think the opportunity in the postseason for DeAndre Hopkins to be a huge difference maker changes the quotient for the ceiling for this Chiefs. Like, I think the Chiefs are well positioned. Like, we're knocking on wood, but to go to that thing that happens after the regular season, I think they're well positioned for that. You want to make a run, and that thing that happens after the regular season, you need some really precise, like, deep pass, like toe drag, swag, whatever you want to call it, like all of these, like, make some insane catches. And you don't need 15 of them a game. You don't need CeeDee Lamb, right? You need, like, 4 or 5 really strong catches a game, and that's what you're going to get from a DeAndre Hopkins. So I think that, especially in the AFC, where I feel like the top is very strong in the AFC, and then there's a bunch of people at the bottom. There's no middle class, right?
It's so
of the
top
AFC.
heavy. Yeah.
It's very top heavy. So I think that those razor thin margins will end up being a difference maker.
Do you think, Cynthia Frillin is our guest, Houston had the unfortunate news of losing Stephon Diggs, and that sucks. Chiefs went through that a few weeks ago with Rashee Rice, and it just changes things, and you're like, man, what could have been? And he looked like he was really enjoying playing football again. How much is that a blow to Houston this year, unless they go out and make a deal for another wide receiver that might be out there? But they've got questions about pass protection, and now the wide receiver injuries, and they're so Jekyll and Hyde with and without Joe Mixon. Are they a team that you can trust now that Stephon Diggs is out for the season?
I cannot. I mean, between Nico Collins being on IR and now Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell is not enough of a wideout one for me to feel like because part of the reason that they have such a big problem is their O-line is not good, decidedly ungood. Their interior O-line specifically, they've given up 15.5 sacks just between the guards and the center. Like, that is a bananas number. They've also given up the most unblocked pressures this season, so meaning guys are just, like, running around this O-line. And now that they've sort of shored up some of their false start things, it's not making things any better. So it's not C.J. Stroud's fault. It's just ultimately when you're not having any fear of stretching the field, it compresses everything and it magnifies the impact of the O-line even more. So it's just going to be really hard for C.J. Stroud to operate under those conditions, even though right now he does have the most passing yards under pressure, but that's because he's under pressure so
That's
often.
right. Yes, he's got more of an opportunity to do that, unfortunately for him. And just like they're, whether it's points per game or if there's something, underlying numbers, it's like, their offense and what they do in a game when Joe Mixon is healthy and not, it's just, he's made such a difference for them. If he can remain healthy, then they're a team to be concerned about. But if Mixon's out, they just don't pack much of a punch.
If they get Nico Collins back healthy, it would be a really big deal. It'd be kind of like last season. But, I mean, this year you've seen Dalton Schultz has had to play so much on the line as basically a sixth offensive lineman, even though he wears the tight end number, that it's changing their ability to pass the ball, period, full stop. So, the amount of times they're having to do that to compensate for a bad O-line. And, by the way, O-line class next year in the draft, there's 2 that are good.
There's going to be 2 or 3 first-round draft picks. That's it. So,
and then slim pickings.
Yeah.
Slim pickings.
Yeah,
so.
it's one of the things that maybe you and I had the conversation, or somebody. It was after the Chiefs drafted Kingsley, and it was like, they took Kingsley in the second round, and I think next year's draft, if Kingsley would have returned to school, he might have been a first-rounder because another year and more seasoning, and it's a lower draft class. Like maybe the Chiefs get a first-rounder a year early and let him develop, But yeah, that's. I also wrote down, quote, decidedly ungood. I love that line.
Yes.
They are decidedly ungood. Last one for you, Cynthia. Do you have a thought on Chiefs and Bucks Monday Night Football? No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. Again, unfortunate with all these dang injuries for wide receivers this year. But Baker Mayfield, no Godwin or Edwards. Let's throw the ball 50 times. And the fact that the Chiefs stopped the run so well, I'm going to go ahead and pound the over in pass attempts for Baker Mayfield on Monday night. But what do you think of this matchup with the Chiefs and Bucks?
You could probably look at an over in terms of number of receptions for Cade Otton as well. Maybe that's something to track. So it's probably around 4.5. So I'd imagine, that would hit the over. But I don't think this is going to be an interesting game at the linebacker level again, mostly because there's a lot of chaos on that team. Like, we know it's not, without Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, we know it's not going to look like something we've seen on film. So I'm actually, this is an interesting test for the defense to see how they adapt to chaotic stuff and how the pressure rate increases in this one. There's a really good opportunity. Baker turns the ball over. Like, when you throw the ball that much, you're going to turn the ball over more anyways. So I want to see how they adapt to chaos. This isn't a team that they play very often. And, and I like that in terms of tests as the season goes on, because that's how you get better as a team. Playing the same people over and over again, it's a different test. Like, stretching your brain in this way, having to deal with, they don't know, every week we see on these injury reports, Bucky Irving's going to play, Bucky Irving's not going to play. Are you scared of Bucky Irving? No, but, it's going to look different, and therefore you get a chance to learn some new things. So I'm not worried about the final score being, anywhere near close or anything like that, but I do want to see, increased improvement in pass rushing, and I want to see the linebackers play just as good as they played last game. That was fun.
Yeah, we should see a number of opportunities for Uche to get out there and rush the passer with how often that the Bucs will be throwing the football. And you're right about Kate Otten. I mean, because Baker Mayfield threw the ball 50 times, and it was to Otten, Bucky Irving, and Rashad White. That's who he was throwing the ball to. Cynthia Freeland,
look at that linebacker level.
Exactly. And the Chiefs have struggled against tight ends. They struggled the first quarter and a half against Brock Bowers, and then Getsy forgot that Brock Bowers played for the Raiders for some reason, which was great. I appreciate him doing that. For the Raiders. That was nice. Cynthia Freeland, NFL Network analytics expert. Cynthia, great stuff as always. Very much appreciate the time. Enjoy the football, and we will talk next week.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Have a great weekend.
Yes, you too. There's Cynthia Freeland. Great stuff from her. The Houston Texans offensive line is decidedly ungood. I love that line. And she went with DeAndre Hopkins as the most impactful trade chip. When she was talking, because I had mentioned earlier, I was like, man, I think I could probably make a case for Uche with the Chiefs, but I would not, pick that.
Yeah.
And she was like, I think, you know what, this may sound crazy, but I'm like, is she going to go Uche? Like, that would sound crazy. I think it's DeAndre Hopkins with the Chiefs. Okay, great. I think so too, just because when Juju wasn't healthy, I mean, Justin Watson was the guy. Like, Sky Moore has to be out there and play. Like, Hopkins makes such a difference. And, with all these wide receivers getting hurt, man, it is a little surprising that with the wide receivers going down and the number of teams that are in the trade market for wide receivers, that the cost acquisition hasn't been that great. The most expensive has been Amari Cooper.
It's hilarious. It should have been a seller's market, and the sellers are all selling low. It's like they didn't understand the market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly nobody wanted Deontay Johnson, and I'm not joking there with that, because
3 picks, 4 picks.
The Panthers ate the whole thing.
Yeah.
We talked yesterday. I'm like, well, that's all that they gave up. Then that means the Panthers weren't touching that cap hit. I mean, that means the Ravens were taking the whole thing. No, the Panthers ate the whole thing. The Ravens are on the hook the rest of the year for $600,000 to pay Deontay Johnson.
There has to be something that we don't know.
Well, I think it's something that other teams do know.
That's my point. Yeah.
People don't want Deontay Johnson in their locker room. And the Ravens are not in the Chiefs' position where the Chiefs are going, we've won back-to-back Super Bowls. We've won 3 in 5 years. We're trying to go for a three-peat, and the Ravens are going, we're getting ready to continue to pay Lamar even more money. And, we got to figure some things out here. And then, we've got Flowers that'll be going into year number 3 next year as a wide receiver. Bateman getting ready for free agency. We need to win a damn Super Bowl, so we'll take on Deontay Johnson and take the risk of maybe something happening within the locker room. And we played against him twice a year the last number of years in Pittsburgh, so we know what he brings to the table.
Well, yeah, we know he's a good player, but good thing the Ravens aren't a run-first offense who have a great throwing quarterback who doesn't look at his tight ends first and then looks at Zay Flowers, who plays the exact same basically position as Deontay in an offense.
Yeah.
And good that he doesn't look to Rashad Bateman second on the deep balls. Yeah, no, I'm sure Deontay Johnson won't complain there.
He won't ask for the ball.
No, he won't ask for the ball.
He won't ask for the ball at all. So, yeah, it's obvious that I think almost any team could have got that. Because right now, as it stands, the Ravens would have in the 5th round the number 159th pick because they're picking 23rd as it stands right now. They get better and better, make a run in the playoffs. They'll pick later. they would drop from 159 to 177 because the Panthers have the number 1 pick right now. So they would have the first pick of the 6th round. So that's 18 spots right now. The Panthers aren't dropping any more than maybe a spot from the first pick in the 6th round.
Yeah.
Maybe a spot. But the Ravens could move further and further back to where that might be pick number 170 or 172 and slide back to 177 and then pay $600,000 for Deontay Johnson this year. That's all you would be giving up is sliding back like 6 or 7 spots and almost nothing for Deontay Johnson. That's essentially giving him away.
Yeah.
That means the market wasn't there. People didn't want him, and the Panthers were ready to move on.
Well, the Panthers' method is buy high, sell low.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
buy
right.
high.
Yeah.
Bryce Young. Let's buy high on him, and then let's sell low on any player that we think might have value.
And it could be after the fact, but there were a number of people reporting around Pittsburgh that said that Deontay Johnson was an addition by subtraction for the Steelers.
Yeah.
That and that might have been he and Pickens together.
Could be
to where they sort of play off each other. It could be one of those things. I don't know. But there were a lot of people around there that said that here are the things coming out of Pittsburgh. Again, that could be after the fact of like, hey, no, this is why we're trading him away. This is why we're. It's not that we don't want to pay him. It's like this guy has been a malcontent. He's tough to deal with. We'll see. But the Chiefs clearly could have had Deontay Johnson if they wanted him. They could have had both Hopkins and Deontay Johnson if they wanted him. They didn't. They went Hopkins. They've got their reasons, and the Ravens have their reasons as to why they wanted Deontay Johnson. And we'll see what the Houston Texans may do because they got some wide receiver issues.
Thielen.
I mean, yeah, it could be.
If I'm Houston, I'm calling on Thielen at least.
Yeah, you know what? He comes back.
I'm the Chiefs. I'm calling about Thielen.
Can you trade on the IR? Because I think Thielen's on the IR.
I thought there was you can't trade IR.
But he might be. But his window might be opening up this week. Like
Right.
legit, I think Thielen might be returning from his hamstring like this week. So as long as
if you're trying to get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean that might be somebody that if hey, let's go ahead and bring him if he's coming off. I'd have to look though, but yeah, if he's coming off the IR here relatively soon. So we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling. Let's talk some college football on the other side.
Let's do it.
We previewed it in the first hour. What's left to play for KU and MU?
My emotions.
They've been playing with that all year. We obviously know what's left to play for Kansas State. But what's left to play for MU and KU? We'll do that next. 913-912-4810. We'll talk with Daniel Holmes coming up at noon. RGR Football and the Draft Network. Chiefs, no Chiefs today. They will be back tomorrow as everything pushed back a day because of Monday Night Football. So tomorrow will be their Wednesday, and that means Friday will be their Thursday. You can continue to do the math there with that. 913-912-4810 is the text line. Let's talk some college football. It's obvious what Kansas State has to play for, the rest of the way. Being 7-1, being 4-1 in conference, they can finish 11-1 this year, 8-1 in conference. They could finish 12-1 this year by winning the Big 12. And if K-State does that, then they're the 4 seed, or maybe the 3 seed. I don't know. Let me, looking at the rankings. I mean, because if they win out. I'm looking at the top 25 right now. If they win out, well, you got a number of teams ahead of them that will lose because they would have beaten number 11 right now, Iowa State, and number 9 right now, BYU. So they'd continue to move up. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State are not going to finish all in the top 4 of the standings. But you just have it's going to be the top 4 conference champions. So do they finish higher than the ACC conference champion is really what it's going to be, because you got SEC and Big Ten are probably going to be the 1 and 2 seed in some way, shape, or form. So if it's Miami,
probably not,
because they may be 12-0. You need Miami to lose at least one. Clemson is ranked ahead of Kansas State right now with their 1 loss. So they could be a team that would be ranked ahead right now. Pittsburgh is right behind Kansas State. So.
Man,
they're either a potential at-large bid out of the playoff or the 3 or 4 seed in the playoffs.
I don't think that Miami is going to play a ranked team all year.
No, Miami doesn't play any of the other teams.
Was Louisville ranked at what? I mean, Louisville's not good, but were they ranked when they faced them? Maybe
no, they weren't. They weren't ranked when they faced them.
And Louisville's not good. They're 4-3 is my point.
Yeah.
That's the best team they faced this year.
Yeah. And
Virginia Tech, maybe, but they play.
Maybe the best team that they faced the rest of the way was Louisville.
For schedule, I'm not trying to be mean, but the ACC it's not all Miami's fault. Obviously, you thought Florida State was going to be decent this year. Obviously, they're ranked top 10, which is hilarious. But I don't always playing who have you played?
Mm-hmm.
That's not a great argument. But Mizzou was supposed to have the easiest SEC schedule this year, and they played Alabama, Texas A&M, Auburn, South Carolina. Vanderbilt's ranked. To me, Oklahoma's at least decent. Oklahoma would be by far and away the best team that Miami would play all year long. I don't get that.
Miami's probably going to end up playing the winner of Pitt and Clemson. That game is in a few weeks.
If they lose that game, there is zero chance in my mind if K-State only has 1 loss as well. Even if K-State loses.
Miami loses to Clemson or Pittsburgh in the conference championship game?
In my opinion, if K-State loses in the Big 12 championship game and they have 2 losses, and let's just say Miami loses to either Clemson or
in the ACC championship
in the ACC, I would still say K-State should be ranked higher.
I would agree.
Because
but
that's
what
the
would
only
the college
team.
Football playoff?
Yeah. They loved them. They loved in Miami.
Because you got the 4 conference winners, you got the group of 5, and then you have 7 at-large bids that are just the next 7th highest ranked teams.
Yeah.
It's not like a selection. Well, it is a selection by ranking them, I guess. So you're selecting them by ranking them. It's like the selection committee. It's like, the ranking committee. So you rank them through 12 or maybe 13, depending on if a conference champion is ranked outside of the top 13, but or top 12, and we'll see if that's the case, because right now that would be the case with Boise State being ranked
15th.
Yeah, 15th. Boise State.
Boise State
15th.
They have. I'm trying to see who they've really played. They beat UNLV, who I think UNLV is decent.
Boise State wouldn't be ranked ahead of Kansas State. So Kansas State wouldn't be the Boise State or whoever the Group of 5 team is going to be the 5 seed, and they'll be playing a home game in round 1 against the 12 seed, against the last team into the playoff.
Yeah.
Kansas State will either be out of the playoffs or one of the last teams in, probably heading to Boise State or UNLV or Army. I mean, honestly, if you're a team that isn't a conference winner, being the 12 seed wouldn't be terrible, at least to get past the first round, because then you'd be playing at the group of 5, more than likely. Well, no, you know what?
It'd be great if Miami ended up at 6. I think K-State would wax Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But we obviously know what K-State's playing for.
Yeah. They may just sorry, Judge.
No, you're good.
There's a good chance that the Big 12 gets 2 teams in.
Well, if BYU loses the conference championship game and has 1 loss,
yeah, I think they're in. I think K-State.
Or if Iowa State beats K-State and undefeated Iowa State undefeated BYU.
Yeah, one of those two.
Yeah, true.
I just think K-State is. K-State might be the only 2-loss Big 12 team I think that could get in. I don't think they would. I think it'd be tough. But
yeah, because if Iowa State has 2 losses, then that would mean that they lost a game along the way, then beat Kansas State, and then lost in the conference championship game, or they have 2 losses and they didn't even make the conference championship game, and that ain't gonna fly. No. Your second loss is gonna have to be in the conference championship game.
Agreed.
So and we'll see what happens with that. But Kansas State has everything right in front of them. I don't know. Would you rather be the 5 seed and get a home game in the first round of the college football playoffs, the first round ever of the college football playoffs, with a on-campus playoff game, or you get the bye, you get into the next round, but you're playing at a bowl site, the Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, something like that?
As a fan, I would say,
man, I would love the.
As a fan, you win the 5, I think, because that, if you're telling me I could go to Columbia to Faurot Field and watch that,
watch a college football playoff game at your home stadium, dude. Oh, that would be phenomenal.
It's almost like the baseball thing. Do you want to have the wild card bye?
Right.
This is different for college football. If you're a fan, I think at least for this year, if you're not Georgia, Alabama, who's been there before and done that, I think that'd be damn cool.
That's from the Missouri side also, that's part of maybe what is a drawback right now of the college football playoff, is that so much talk this offseason about, hey, they got a chance to make the playoff. And if they go 10-2, if they do, they're not going to make the playoff. And it's going to feel like a hollow season, even
Correct.
being a 10-win team. And it's like, well, they didn't accomplish what you wanted them to accomplish, and so it wasn't all that fun of a season, which is crazy to think about, because Missouri, if they were to win out and win these final 4 games of the season, which I believe they absolutely can, again, depending on Brady Cook's health. With Drew Pine, I don't think there's a chance they win these final 4 games. With Brady Cook, I think they can. But they've won back-to-back double-digit win seasons only twice in their history. I mean, even if they get to 9 wins and win the bowl game and get 10 wins this year, I mean, it'd be back-to-back double-digit win seasons for the 3rd time in school history. Yet it wouldn't feel all that great of a season.
Well, we talked about it, and every season's different. And again, Missouri's schedule is going to be way harder than Miami's or Clemson's. But at the same point, Miami took care of business. This is about the easiest schedule you're going to have in the SEC. Yeah. Missouri didn't take care of business. You can talk, because next year's not going to be this.
No, they'll have a tougher schedule next year, but also they won't have Luther Burden. They won't have Theo East.
And the expectations are going to be different.
Yeah.
And again, as a Mizzou alum, Mizzou fan, this was just a disappointing year. The A&M game is the one that really sticks out.
If they lost both those games by a closer margin, would you be more okay with the season 10-2?
100%.
It's just how they.
It's how they
blown
lost.
Out both games.
Being blown out, you weren't close. Because even if they would have lost those 2 games, somehow would have been 10-2. But you lose by 3.
I think what it shows too is the margin for error. That if the Luther Burden touchdown happens against A&M, is that game different?
Sure,
if
but
Brady Cook, it's an if. I'm just saying
that's also on Drink not getting it. They rolled over.
Right, I know. I'm saying the margin for error. If something positive like that happens and they stay in the game, maybe they lose, but it's closer.
Yeah,
that happens, and then everything starts melting down, and you lose by 4 touchdowns. Against Bama, if Brady Cook stays in the game or Noel's healthy, it was 6-0 late in the second quarter.
Yeah, that's all Brady Cook. I mean,
right. And
Drew Pine threw 3
is it
straight
different
picks.
there from that standpoint? Do you have a different feeling? Maybe it was closer. You'd also have a better argument for making the playoff if you'd had those losses and you were in it to the end there in the fourth quarter, like Missouri was against Georgia last year, where it's man, you had the ball and you had a chance to go win that game against Georgia, and a turnover happens, and that's unfortunate. That's not what these 2 losses are. What's Kansas? What do they have to, Dylan? What do they have to play for this year? I mean, they have to win out, and that's going to be pretty damn tough to go to a bowl game. So it's probably not a bowl game this year. It would feel like a big step back.
I mean, last week was it. If we're being honest here,
Yeah.
like beating Kansas State in Manhattan was
then you
kind of
would've-
a great way to.
Because then you wouldn't have had to go undefeated the rest of the way even to make a bowl, and you would have beaten Kansas State.
Right. So I think we've already passed that threshold. No, honestly, just spoil it. Just keep trying to be a spoiler. Stack as many wins you possibly can. Really, I do think that the fact that you have to get on a bus to go play home games 40, 50 minutes away is going to, I'm not trying to give them excuses, but I'd like to see what we look like next season.
Yeah,
in the
well, I
new
mean,
stadium.
I'd agree with that.
UNLV and TCU at home, if they were in Lawrence, are those games different as
Yeah.
opposed to being at
I don't know, but-
Sporting or Arrowhead? I have no idea if they are or not.
I can
mean,
act like they would be. Though.
Yeah.
No, but
I
I'm
mean, we'll
with
see
you.
with Iowa State, next weekend at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
What that's like, and Colorado at Arrowhead, on November 23rd. We'll see what that's like. But, they've got 3 straight ranked teams ahead of them.
Yeah.
With Iowa State, BYU, and Colorado.
Just play spoiler.
Yeah.
But I'm with
They can
you.
do that. They can play spoiler
I
for all
agree.
of them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because there's just a different feel when you're playing at a college campus in front of. Don't get me wrong, it was cool, it's fun. I'm sure for the players, one time Austin to play at Arrowhead, one time to play at Sporting, that's great.
When they're barely painting the lines on the field because they don't want to
Yep.
mess up Sunday,
but
it's kind of a.
It ain't
Also,
the same.
It's kind of cool for KU, but the other team coming in, that's the one time they get to play. Now it's
That's
even
badass,
cooler
yeah.
for
Such
them.
a great point.
Like Iowa State coming in, it's like, hell yeah, we get to play at Arrowhead, where KU's like, yeah, we've done this a few times now. This is sort of old hat. Let's just get the job done.
And if you're KU, I think season clearly it's over as far as like what expectations were.
Yeah.
But if you want at least some sort of glass half full, or at least, hey, maybe look towards next year just to see what could be. They're 1-4 in conference. KU is. They have a +7 point differential. They're 1-4, and they've scored 155 and given up 148. They're 2-6 this year. They're 2-6.
Yeah,
They have a +43 point differential. Like, you're in every single game.
Lindenwood and Houston helped, but
no, but then you look at just
but
again,
all those close
Houston.
losses,
But like,
right.
that's my point is, don't give up on Lance. Don't give up on the program.
Right.
If you're a KU fan, don't just all of a sudden say we're a basketball school yet again. Again, this is from a Mizzou guy. KU, you have built
I
something.
don't think that's the case.
That's the closest we've been to K-State in Manhattan in years.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll
yeah.
take that.
You're
And I know-
building something.
and I
Moral
know that-
victories stink, but at the same time, we're not throwing
Yeah.
the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
And I know that tonight on Hawk Talk, Lance Leipold won't say like, "Oh yeah, we lost close, so this is a big positive."
Exactly. And
He
you don't
said-
want him to either.
He said with New Day yesterday, he goes, "Well, I never looked at the scores of what it was before I got here, so I don't know what those scores were. I just know that we lost the game. We didn't go and win that game." What's crazy is they could barely they could miss a bowl game and be a game under 500 in conference. If they go 3-1, they'd be 4-5 in conference play and still not be bowl eligible, which would be crazy to think about. All right, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling, wrap up this hour. We'll talk with Daniel Holmes coming up at noon. Some Chiefs football talk. More Zone next. with Daniel Holmes coming up in the noon hour. Some NFL football with Daniel. Tonight at 7 o'clock, we've got Game 5 of the World Series right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Major League Baseball playoff coverage presented by Greenlight Dispensary. Check out greenlightdispensary.com for all premium cannabis products this playoffs. Yankees and Dodgers. Yankees trying to make history. Being the first team ever to force what would be a Game 6 after being down 3-0. Jack Flaherty and Garrett Cole tonight, that matchup. So the Yankees got Garrett Cole on the mound. They're in Yankee Stadium. A little momentum on their side. And we'll see if Garrett Cole gives up the home run to Freddie Freeman in the first or the third or fourth inning. We'll find out tonight. Daniel Holmes next. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. Let's talk to Daniel Harms, RGR Football, and the Draft Network. We believe we'll be talking to Daniel Harms. Dylan, do we have the real Daniel Harms here, or is it somebody else that maybe you called that we almost had on for a guest?
Yeah, so no, it won't be Julia Long. I do not know how the
Julia, we apologize.
We apologize
that
but,
Dylan called you to try to get you on as a guest, although maybe she was ready to come on and talk some football with us.
You know, it's actually my fault. I didn't ask her. I assumed she didn't know anything about Josh Uche, but I should have asked.
You
her.
should have. Why didn't you ask her?
I
We
really
could have
don't.
had Julia Long on, then we could have had Daniel Harms on. We could have compared their answers.
Is she
compare,
related to
contrast.
Kyle Long?
I see. These are
These
the
are the
questions I didn't ask.
questions.
Yeah, but if she's not related to Kyle Long, is she related to Howie Long then?
What about Sam? What about Sam Long? Yeah, I see what you did there.
You saw what I did there. All right. You
Well,
saw
I
what
meant
did there.
Sam Long,
I see.
the pitcher for the
No,
Royals.
that makes total sense.
Who I had an affinity for.
Daniel Harms is our guest, RGR Football and the Draft Network. Daniel, what's up? How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing? You know, having anybody on would always be an experience, right? If you call some random person, have it on the radio, you never know what you're going to get. So I think you should have taken that opportunity there.
Dylan, if you'd have told me that, we would have just asked Julie, do you have some time? We'll have you on. We'll talk some Chiefs football with you. You know, you never know what you're going to get, right?
Great segment idea.
Okay.
You dial random people. Dylan, you have to say, hey, you're about to be
You have to
on,
tell them
on,
you're
on,
on the-
radio. But
right.
Yeah, I'm
that'd
calling
be
you about your car warranty.
a
And,
great show. Hey,
Chiefs
you're about to
coverage.
go on air. We're going to ask you some questions. You win? And if they say yes, that sounds like an electric show.
Yeah, that would be great. Daniel, there's a big question that we have to have the answer to, and this is going to put you on the spot, and I hate to do that, but let's do it anyway. So we had a little fun game yesterday after the show, and we said, all right, Sterling and Dylan, both send Daniel the text at the exact same time to see if he's available to come on the show, and let's see who he responds to first. Now, their timestamps are exactly the same. We weren't around each other when you replied, so we got to know who got the first reply, Sterling or Dylan.
If I had to, I'm going to go look really quickly because
Yeah.
I'll be
I'll
honest,
tell
I
you.
was doing something else at the time, and I didn't even respond right away.
Yeah, it took a little
But if I had to guess, I would say Sterling got it first.
Let's go.
Dang it.
Take that, Dylan.
It was by like 20 seconds. So.
We'll fix that in post. That's fine. We'll just say it was Dylan.
I love you, Daniel. I love you, Harms.
yes.
That's my dude right there.
But the timestamp is exactly the same. Both of their timestamps 2:11.
Yeah.
So we know when the text came in. So it's great. Daniel Harms is our guest. Also, great stuff on the breakdown of Joshua Uche at YouTube. You can go check that out if you follow him on Twitter or on YouTube as well. But let's talk about that, Daniel. Your reaction. I know that you went through and looked at all the pass rushing snaps, but I'm just curious, like your reaction when you heard the name, like, okay, they have traded for Joshua Uche. He's heading to the Kansas City Chiefs. They've given up whatever the compensation was. We find out what it was, eventually being, a sixth rounder. But what did you think of the move before you had a deeper dive into what the Chiefs were getting?
It was a little shocking to be not. I won't say shocking because I whenever they trade for someone, it's like okay, they're definitely gearing up. It was more of a positional discrepancy because I expected them to trade for a cornerback yesterday and not an edge rusher. But when you sit back and you think about what the Chiefs were able to do over the past few seasons, even when their corners weren't great, you go back to one thing: you got pressure quickly. They've been leading the league in pressures and sacks over the past couple of seasons, and that will dramatically help your corners out. And they apparently seem convinced that Joshua Williams and Najee Johnson are going to be able to handle it, and experience in the system tells you one thing. So when I first got the information, I was just like, okay, it tells you they're all in, right? Like they feel like this situation is, especially being 7-0 at this point, you have some injuries cropping up. You're hoping to get a little bit healthier as the month goes on. You're hoping to get Charles Omenihu back. We don't know the severity of Mike Dana's injury. Maybe they didn't necessarily know the severity of that injury. But overall, my biggest takeaway from this move was this is going to help FAU.
Interesting.
I'd be very honest because if you look at Charles Omenihu, you look at Mike Dana, you look at George Karlaftis, their skill sets, Omenihu is probably a much better pass rusher than those guys, but they are not necessarily quick, fast winners in the general sense when you think of speed edge rushers. I think that FAU coming out mirrors closer to what Josh Uche is right now. Now, that's not saying that they're close to players, but the one thing you could really put on FAU coming out was he was quick off the edge, he has really fast hands, and he's got a lot of pass rush moves. I mean, that's like Josh Uche, not Che, Uche.
I know. I've been trying to work on it too. So when they traded for him, it was like had some people from New England say, "All right, here he is at his press conference over the summer saying he wants to go by Joshua Uche." I'm like, okay, well, if that's what he wants to go by, that's what I'll call him. I want to call him Sackmaster. I want to, Mama call him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
Right?
I'll call him a resident of Sack Nation. Damn it, let's see what he can do. That's what I'll call him.
Absolutely. Maybe he can be the COO of Sack Nation in Kansas City with Chris Jones being the CEO.
A number 55 out there again. I just want to see a 55 roaming after quarterbacks.
When we get clips from practice today, as long as it's 55, I'm good. I'm gonna be happy.
I'm all in. 55 in the playoffs, wearing a red jersey, getting after a quarterback. That's nothing but good vibes. Nothing but good vibes. So with helping FAU, is it in practice studying Uche? Is it on the field together? It'll help FAU. How do you look at what the impact could be? And when you said your reaction is this is going to help FAU.
Yeah, he was always more of a developmental guy, but when you are in the same room, I know everyone talks about developing players, but what I think we're seeing right now in some other areas of the country, specifically in the Indianapolis area, development isn't always taken as the top priority, right? You hope that players put in enough work on their own, the training with guys like Tamba Hali. But when you are in the same room with someone who I think has some of the skills that you do, I think that helps you just as much as working on your own or trying to get with some veterans or even with George or Mike Dana or Charles Omenihu. So I'm hopeful. I mean, obviously, we don't know if it's actually going to happen, but the idea would be that he rubs off a little bit on some of just the hand quickness and the ways that he can threaten the edge that I only think that that FAU and Kansas City outside of Josh Uche could do before he got here. So just watching him play, trying to take some of what he does on the field, go out there yourself, and to maybe try to execute the same thing can really help him develop that area of his game.
Visiting with Daniel Harms, RGR Football, the Draft Network. When you studied the tape and you did the breakdown of Joshua Uche, what did you learn about him, and what do you think his impact can be for the Chiefs the rest of the way?
Yeah, I was already a very big fan of Uche coming out of Michigan. As a Michigan fan myself, I wanted the Chiefs to draft him. I even have a tweet, draft him on day 2, things like that. And there was lots of speculation he was going to go at the end of the first round, and I was like, are the Chiefs going to draft him? No, they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire instead. So
now they got both.
I love exactly. They've got both. So I mean, they ended up with 2 players that at the time were fun to think about in Kansas City, and so. When you really get into his game, coming out of Michigan, he was a hybrid linebacker, edge rusher. He was kind of doing a lot of different things, but he has developed into in my opinion, a pass rush artist. Now, he's not a true 1, 2, 3 down player in the NFL. He's a fine defensive end. If you want him out there, he can do his own. He recognizes plays, but his bread and butter is pass rush. That's why he's basically been a pass rusher specialist for New England over his time there. But going back to 2022, his best season, he rushed on against left tackles predominantly and was amazing. He was fantastic. And if you think about how he fits into the defense, really George Karlaftis rushes over the right tackle almost exclusively, or he reduces inside from time to time. That pairs perfectly with what the Chiefs want to do, because we've seen Chris kick out, right? We've seen him kick out on the left tackle a lot, where he picks those sides or he's rushing from the inside. But I think that Uche meshes very – Uche, did I do it again? I think I did it again.
I think you did.
Uche meshes very well with how they want to structurally rush from the edge position. And the way he moves is very – I'm a basketball player. I'm isolated on this player one-on-one. He moves very fluidly, right? He's got great athletic ability. He can manipulate tackles. And the one thing that I really took away is that he can get what he wants almost every time with body manipulation, where he'll typically when you're rushing a tackle, you're going to divide them in half. If you're going to rush to the inside, you're going to attack that inside half of the tackle. He's so good at isolating the half that he wants to attack, whether it's initially going inside and moving the angle point that he gets to rush around the edge a half inch to the inside so we can clearly get around the edge, or setting up an inside counter with his speed and quickness to, again, threaten the arc and then come back to the inside. He's got a really good plan of attack. He never looks like he's trying to figure out what he's about to do. He always feels like he's in control of the pass rush, and that's not something you always see in Kansas City outside of, I would say Charles Menahue and Chris Jones, and it's been just Chris Jones this season.
Well, I know that Spagnuolo likes his versatility on his defensive linemen, defensive ends. Can you move outside? Can you slide down to the inside?
Yeah.
That's one of the things they loved about Charles Menahue. George Karlaftis can slide down to the inside as well. Chris Jones, you mentioned he can go to the outside and inside. Uche's not that guy, right? Like, he's not going to be, if Uche's in the game, he's going to be lining up outside, and that's predominantly what he's going to be. Not really any twists or stunts. Like, if he's in the game, you'd have other guys sliding down in the interior to rush, guard to guard rather than this guy.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually mentioned in my video that I don't like watching him on stunts. He gets caught up on bigger, stronger guys all the time. So I don't like him stunting. But I will say I wouldn't rule out if Spags is going to blitz a ton, like send full pressure. It would not shock me to see him try to isolate Josh Uche's speed and acceleration inside against any running back, because I think he can make them miss as well. So predominantly you're probably going to see him on the outside, maybe from a wide 9 position, especially in those situations where they're blitzing. But again, think about how they're going to blitz off of him too, right? He's going to garner a lot of attention on those third down situations because he essentially is that pure pass rusher where he comes into the game to rush the passer, so he gets a bit more attention maybe from the quarterback, the running back, and the tackle, and then you can blitz around him, maybe create some more space for your blitzers.
Daniel Holmes is our guest, RGR Football and the Draft Network. Is it a circumstantial thing with the Chiefs and defensive ends in speed rushers versus maybe, multi-down, had a D Ford before that? Is it a circumstantial thing to where it just didn't come up in terms of acquiring somebody or drafting somebody specifically for that's a speed rusher? Is it something Spags doesn't necessarily like? Because, this is a guy that, he's got some speed to power, but as you mentioned, it's athleticism and getting around the edge and cutting down the arc. Like, is it more circumstantial? Is it maybe a Spags preference that he likes bigger guys that are more versatile as opposed to now he does have a guy that's more of that speed rushing type player?
Yeah, I think that we've definitely seen that he prefers to have the big, powerful defensive ends to be able to scheme around, right? You can play inside, you can play outside, but even Mike Dana, to an extent, was a little bit lighter. He tried to produce inside a couple of times, but he got mauled against the run. He likes to have guys that can do a lot of different things, especially against the run, where if you're left out there and they're going to run the football, he trusts you and wants you to be able to hold up against the run. So I think that's why you saw them maybe take a chance on Felix, but he's gotten so much stronger from last year to this year that he looks more the part of a Steve Spagnuolo defensive end, and Uche is not. He's definitely not, and that's why it was interesting to see them go in this direction. But if you think about how they've not really been successful rushing the passer outside of Chris Jones, and he's getting double, triple teams at times, unless they're blitzing, they have not won their one-on-one situations at a high rate. Now, George is starting to come on a little bit over the last few weeks, but even FAU, who is playing much better football and right now than he ever has in his NFL career, there's still not a ton of quick wins, and creating those four-man pressures and being able to win one-on-one battles when Chris Jones is getting double teams. There's not enough winning in that regard. And honestly, I think you saw it prevalent against the Raiders, where they would maybe blitz or rush four guys and the ball was coming out quickly and faster than you could get after them. So this is hopefully going to help solve some of that, because I still think they want to rush four a lot of times. And when you have to blitz to create pressure, it puts even more pressure on your corners and your young guys that are now forced to play more snaps because of injury. So I think that over the totality of the defense, this is going to ring true, hopefully, at the linebacker position and going into the third level of the defense as well. So you can put maybe some more pressure on them to guard one-on-one, and you're getting a little bit more quick pressure from your four down front to create the inaccurate passes that I think Steve Spagnuolo is looking for.
I love the roster building and cost acquisition and draft and salary cap and everything. I love all of that. So I would have loved to be, behind the scenes, fly on the wall, or in the office when they're going through some of these scenarios, because I'm with you. I thought they would trade for a cornerback. If you'd have said that they traded with the New England Patriots, I'd said, all right, Jonathan Jones is a Kansas City Chief, and Patriots probably ate a decent portion of that cap. And what's the cap hit, and what's the draft pick compensation? But I would love to know behind the scenes as they're looking at it and discussing and analyzing the cornerback market, and what the cost acquisition would be for that versus now Uche's available and what the cost acquisition is for that. Does it make more sense from what was available and what it would take to bring in a cornerback to help them and help the younger guys and move everybody else back that spot like it was with Jalen Watson? Less pressure on Williams and Najee Johnson and CRW. But I do wonder if that was the original plan, and then this comes together and they go, what it takes to get him and what he can do to help those guys out, it makes more sense, cost acquisition, roster building, to bring this guy in. And also, Daniel, with Spag's defense, we talk about how difficult that is sometimes, and maybe younger guys or getting used to that system. Is it easier for a cornerback to be in the Spagnuolo system, when to blitz, when not to blitz, disguising coverages one side or the other, or a defensive end that's sort of like, hey, watch the ball, when they snap it, go get quarterback?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what we, at least from what I'm gathering by this move, they seem to think that Jalen Watson's the guy. That's what this tells me, right? When he comes back next year, he's going to be the cornerback too, no questions asked. And I think he's earned that right. Now, unfortunately, if you were to go trade for a guy that's not a rental, that's a situation maybe you don't want to have on your hands. But they played two corners at the same time last year. That was a little bit different because they drafted 3 or 4 of them in 1 year. So they're trying to figure out who was going to be in that situation. But I think that Jalen Watson has earned the cornerback 2 spot across from Trent McDuffie. And they maybe didn't want to have to deal with someone with a multi-year deal in that situation. You probably could have found somebody to do that. But the comfort level from the scheme, you see Trent McDuffie comes in first year. He's in the slot. He's awesome, right? He was able to do that. I think you saw, L'Jarius Sneed over time got more comfortable. They found out more about his skill set and how he fit into that. They've traded for some, corners at the end of their time over the last 5-6 years where more experienced guys are able to come in. So I think that plays in for sure if you're going to get a veteran on the end of his contract, wherever he is. There's far more application where he can come in, and especially if he's going to be like a press physical man corner type player, that's probably who they're looking for. And maybe that archetype of corner wasn't necessarily available. Again, I'm not entirely sure who's on the trade market for all teams in the NFL, things like that. But those are probably the discussions they had. And if it comes down to, like I said, if they believe that Jalen Watson's the guy, like they want him to be next year, but they trust that Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams can do it, specifically because at least what we understand, right, that Najee Johnson was supposed to, quote unquote, be competing for a starting job last season. Like that's what we all learned about in training camp. Then he got hurt. And Josh Williams has been a starter. He's been on the field. He was on the field in the Super Bowl last year. He's been rotating in with Jalen Watson throughout his career. So they seem to have a lot more confidence in those players. And I'll say this. Chris Roland Wallace, I think, can also play on the outside. I think he's good enough to play there to give you some of that versatility that you're looking for, that they felt this move to get a low-cost, 1-year rental on a guy that maybe helps improve their 4-man rush and take some of the pressure off the corners was a far more viable option than maybe getting somebody else.
Well, and Roland Wallace, I think, is interesting because I think reps, and the more reps he gets, the better he'll be, because those two the catches that were made on him that were contested catches and he was right there, neither one of those he got his head around. And I think if both of them, if he gets his head around, he knocks the ball away. And I think that's just going to be experience and reps of being there, because he was in position. He wasn't beat. He didn't get toasted. He was right there and got a hand on the arm/football, but just a little bit too late because he was reacting to the wide receiver's arms reacting. If he gets his head around a little bit earlier on those plays, or knowing when to get your head around and when not to, because if that wide receiver is just running it out and you get your head around and now he stops and heads the other way, well, now toast. Now you're done. Of maybe picking up on small little things while the action's going so fast, and if he looks back, I think he knocks one or both of those away. So I think experience, like he seemed to be in the right place. He seemed to be okay in terms of coverage on those particular plays.
Yeah, he's definitely been sticky over his last two games. Obviously, coming out of the bye, they played San Francisco. He made some really good plays. He was in the right place at the right time for the interception. But sticky in coverage against Ricky Pearsall in the slot, which I loved to see. And I'm gonna be very honest. Do we think that the Chiefs corners are taught to turn their head? I don't think they are.
No,
I think that they are taught to only play the receiver.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at this point, I've kind of just given up on them expecting guys to turn their head, because there was even a play against Trent McDuffie against the Raiders where he's in the right position, but he's not turning his head. He's playing against the receiver. So, and he's an excellent corner, but that's until I see it, I'm not going to believe that that's what they teach these guys. I think that they're just playing the receiver, and that's why I think, by extension, they rely a little bit on inaccurate throws based off of pressure, right? And you've seen that happen, so maybe that's another reason why they went out and got Josh Uche, because we kind of rely on quarterbacks to throw into the dirt or off target, but those were some legitimately good, accurate throws from Gardner Minshew against sticky coverage, and they're trying to maybe mitigate that a little bit.
Daniel Harms, RGR Football and the Draft Network. Daniel, thank you for the time, man. Very much appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the football, and looking forward to catching up soon.
Always, man. Thank you for having me. I always have a good fun time.
Absolutely. You too, man. There's Daniel Harms. Great stuff from him. Go check him out in Harms Way 19 on the X, the Twitter, but also the YouTube channel. He's got that full breakdown. So a lot of the things that we talked about there, but even more that he broke down and looking at the film. So he's talking about it with the plays to back it up and coinciding with what he's talking about from Uche and what he can bring to the table. And an interesting point that he made about right versus left side, rushing from the left side a lot maybe lately, but his best year he was rushing from the right side against the left tackle. And with the Chiefs, Karlaftis rushes from the left side against the right tackle. So that means that Uche would be, in theory, on the opposite side, which is the spot he was rushing from predominantly when he had his big season before they moved him around to different spots. So that's pretty interesting to think about, that maybe that's another reason why the Chiefs liked the matchup or the connection there of what he brought to the table, in that, all right, here's his skill set. Let's look at what he did a couple of years ago. Oh, wow, he's rushing against left tackles in the right side. Maybe there's just a more comfortable bend from that way than it is from the left side, and we already got Karlaftis over there, so let's see what we got with this guy on the right side.
I think my favorite thing he brought up was actually the fact that he texted me first instead of Dylan.
I thank you to Daniel Holmes, RGR Football, the Draft Network, talking about Joshua Uche and what he brings to the table. And I expect him to be out there a lot this weekend because unlike, DeAndre Hopkins and learning all the routes and the wide receiver and where you're supposed to line up and all of the checks and motions and on the line of scrimmage, off the line of scrimmage, and that's a lot for Andy Reid's offense. For a guy who's a pass rushing specialist, yeah, he'll have to know, like, okay, on this blitz, I need you to slide inside to this gap, or, you are needing to stay outside no matter what your pass rush plan is. With this blitz, I need you to stay out. You're not going to jab outside and then come back in. You can't do that. Like, some of those things, yeah, he's going to have to know, but go get quarterback if they're not blitzing against a team that's probably going to pass it like 40, 45 times on Monday night.
Just tell them cha-cha slide. Slide to the left. Slide to the right. Like
crisscross. Nope, no crisscross.
Well,
no
it's a stunt. That's a stunt. Crisscross is a stunt. So it could be.
One hop this time.
I'm just knowing Spags. That.
Yeah.
Would you be surprised? I mean, Spags is a creative guy. Maybe just using the cha-cha slide to tell these guys what to do.
Yeah, that's maybe what it is. I'm not sure. I doubt it, but it could be.
It could be.
I don't know. I'm not in the meetings, so I can't say for a fact. I cannot confirm nor deny.
I'm not in the meetings, so we have no idea.
No idea. You don't know.
But you're right. Against someone like Tampa Bay, who throws the ball almost as much as any team in the NFL, you think this could be a fairly large Uche type of game. Maybe FAU gets a larger uptick as well. But also, this means Turk Wharton and Chris Jones should feast in this one. Turk Wharton will get a lot on one-on-ones, and Turk's been great this season, but I think that's in their name to look for in this particular matchup is if they do drop back to pass a ton, which the Buccaneers do, this defensive line needs to get pressure and pressure quick. Turk Wharton's the guy I'm looking for.
What do you make of the fact that, Deontay Johnson is a Baltimore Raven, and it's essentially a cheaper deal than what the Chiefs gave up for DeAndre Hopkins for a guy who's 3 years younger and more athletic. I don't know that he offers more to the offense of what the Chiefs may be looking for if they were looking for a Rashee Rice body type rather than a body type than maybe they already have on the team. And obviously they got Juju, but Juju being injured, the Panthers picked up nearly $3 million of his remaining salary, leaving about $600,000 in change for the Baltimore Ravens. They may have moved up like anywhere from 5 to 15 spots in the draft. I know it's a 6th for a 5th, but you're talking about a late 5th and maybe the first pick of the 6th round. What do we take away? What do we glean from the fact that that's all it took to get Deontay Johnson, and Diana Rossini reporting that multiple teams were interested in Deontay Johnson?
Yeah, and
that's what were other teams offering? Like brand new footballs, like a weekend at their timeshare for. Like what is it that there was an offer for their Kohl's cash?
I mean, that's valuable.
Well, depending on if you're shopping that within that 1 hour on that one day that you can use the Kohl's cash. But like, what do we really think that other teams were offering? And if that's all teams were offering, multiple teams interested, and that's all it took, and the Panthers are willing to take on all that money, here's what it says to me: Panthers were wanting to move on, and other teams were not really wanting them.
Yeah.
That's the only takeaway I have. Like those two things, that's what both those sides are telling you. Multiple teams interested, Panthers picking up almost the entire thing, and they moved up like 10 to 15 spots in the draft.
Tops. I mean, it could
exactly.
It legitimately could be one spot.
Well, hopefully it's not.
Hopefully it's not. But I'm saying
it won't be because of comp picks after the 6th round.
Sure.
So it could be like 3 or 4 if they win the Super Bowl, depending on how many comp picks. But still, you're to your point.
Yeah. Matt Derrick also pointed out for the Chiefs side of things, including all the moves now, Matt Derrick tweeted this out, that the Chiefs now have a grand total of $255,953 in available cap space right now.
Specifically, how many cents? I mean,
they don't have cents, but I want it to
thanks,
be.
Matt.
But that's according to the NFLPA salary cap report, and that does include Juwan Taylor's and all that stuff.
Yeah, they'd have to make another move somewhere,
So
but
you'd have to make another move.
they're going to have to make a move anyway because if they only have 200,000 left, I mean, they're going to have to make a move because they got to keep the lights on, as we like to say. The rest
lights
of the way.
cost a lot of money. Apparently,
That's right.
electricity's crazy.
Activating. I mean, it was out for a number of people.
I
yesterday,
now
but,
have a huge affinity. What's it for? Motel 6. They'll keep the light on for because I mean they must have been spending a lot of money keeping that light on for them.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. Unless the power's up, but they probably have a generator and everything.
Yeah.
So,
but you're right though. In regards to Deontay Johnson, this says that the Panthers wanted to move on no matter what. They were saying we're done with this.
we've got till Tuesday. We've got 1 week left to get something done, and multiple teams are interested. And this is what the offers. These are the offers.
And no one wanted Deontay that bad, and clearly no one wanted to extend Deontay Johnson either. Because we were talking about how if he goes to KC, maybe they would already have an extension in place, or at least
because they didn't have the cap space for him.
Yeah, and so I'm a little surprised by that because I do think Deontay Johnson's a really solid football player. I do think that at times you've seen, and now a lot of this is coming on the Steelers side, but we've seen it in Carolina. He's not necessarily the most willing blocker. A lot of the little things that the Chiefs want from their wide receivers that they covet in the wide receivers, Deontay may not have fit in that sort of mold. I am surprised though. Like, there's no chance that was their best offer, unless they were saying we're not trading him to certain teams. But the Panthers wouldn't do that because you're in rebuild mode.
Right, but that's what's so weird about it because Cooper Kupp's off the table when the Rams won.
Yes,
and DeMarcus Robinson when that happened. Christian Kirk got injured.
Yes,
he's off the table. Hopkins was already traded. All right,
Cooper's
he's off the
already
table.
traded.
Right. Stephon Diggs got injured, and Collins is still on the IR. So like you've got teams that are vying for a Super Bowl or a playoff run that are in need, and the market isn't. The Bucks lose Godwin and Evans, at least Evans until what, week 10 or 11 that they're talking about until he comes back.
And
like
Godwin probably for the season.
Well, Godwin definitely for the season. So like you've got teams that are competing and need wide receiver help.
Rashid Shaheed for the Saints, who if the Saints are trying to, they're what 3-5.
Yeah.
The Tampa's 4-4. I mean,
and so you've got a limited market now with Cooper, Adams, Hopkins off the table, already traded, and Cooper Kupp, DeMarcus Robinson, Christian Kirk out of the running for that.
Yeah.
And yet that's all it took to get him.
By the way, I'm wrong. Saints are 2-6. I thought they were 3-4. They are somehow even worse than I expected.
Yeah, I mean, they won those first two games.
The first two, and then I thought they won one more, but no, I was wrong. But the point remains, there's a lot of teams that need wide receiver help.
And this guy, like, it just tells me that teams didn't want to bring him in. Teams didn't want to bring him in.
The 49ers. I mean, how many injuries do they have at wide receiver right now? I mean, just in general.
Right. I mean, one of the wide receivers got shot. I mean, he's back now, but they've had a lot of issues there at their wide receiver.
The Chargers, Quentin Johnston's missed a good chunk of this season. I mean, I am very surprised that Deontay Johnson, that is what he went for. There has to, again, be more behind it. Unless the Panthers, which maybe I'm giving the Panthers too much credit, but unless they are that bad when it comes to understanding the market and just taking the first offer that they came across, it's perplexing. There has to be something behind the scenes that we don't all know.
All right, so there's a statement released by the New York Yankees. We told you earlier today. Oh yeah. This is breaking news, of course. But we told you earlier today from the ESPN and AP story with the fans in attendance there in New York last night that grabbed Mookie Betts' arm and tried to rip the ball out of his glove, and the ball eventually did go out of his glove, but they were then escorted out, ejected from the game to high fives and selfies and hugs and whatever. They said later on that the Yankees, as they were escorted out of Yankee Stadium, said they were told they would be allowed back for Game 5 on Wednesday night. They are season ticket holders. Those are their seats. That's where they stand. They patrol the wall.
I would love to know who said they were able to come back for a game. I would love to know which. Steinbrenner. It was Steinbrenner. Okay.
Well, the usher said we can come back for the game. Yeah. Probably not the smartest thing for them to say that, because that's what a lot of people nationally are talking about. Is like, okay, how can these people be allowed back into the stadium? Probably wouldn't have been a big deal if they wouldn't have said that. The Yankees have now released a statement. Quote, Last night, 2 fans were ejected from Yankee Stadium for egregious and unacceptable physical contact with Dodgers outfielder Mookie Betts. The safety and security of players, fans, and stadium staff is the foundational element of every event held at Yankee Stadium, and it cannot be compromised. Tonight marks the final home game of the year, and we want every ounce of our fans' passion on display. Yankee Stadium is known for its energy and intensity. However, the exuberance of supporting one's team can never cross the line into intentionally putting players at physical risk. The Yankees and Major League Baseball maintain a zero-tolerance policy toward the type of behavior displayed last night. These fans will not be permitted to attend tonight's game in any capacity. So that's, I guess, step number 1 of they will not be there tonight. We'll see what happens moving forward. These guys are apparently longtime season ticket holders. So what do the Yankees do moving forward? Because I would say there would be a ban from stadiums.
Yeah.
And certainly a ban from how could they be back next year at Yankee Stadium as a season ticket holder? They put their hands on a player.
Well, it's not
and
like
pulled his arm into them, and then somebody else grabbed his other arm to keep him from, getting away from this guy. Like, you could injure the guy's wrist or elbow or something. Like, that just can't happen. Busseroni said this morning a lifetime ban eligible for parole after 10 years.
Well, no, I'm sure it'll blow over because it's not like people ever remember the guys who do stuff like this. It's not like, they're famous or Steve Bartman's name still gets thrown around. No, I'm sure this will blow over in the next couple of days.
I mean, yeah, right. Well, it's the last game at Yankee Stadium until next April or March, whenever the season starts. I don't even know when the season starts next year, but whether it's late March or early April. But it's the last game there. We'll see. These guys are well known apparently in that area.
Well, because they defended.
They play D.
They play D.
That's right. They play defense. They D up. They joke around. We always joke about the ball in our area. We're not going to go out of our way to attack. Wrong. You did. If it's in our area, we're going to D up. Someone defends, someone knocks the ball. We talk about it. We're willing to do this. Well, no, you went out of your way to attack. He had already caught the ball in play.
Yes.
In the field of play. He had already caught the ball. And then you went and grabbed his glove and pulled it back to you, and then were trying to rip the ball out. And then as he's reaching up to try to stop you, your jagoff friend grabs his other arm and then holds that until the ball gets knocked loose and you let go.
Did they assume that you had to survive the fans? Like, is this the new?
It's what it is. In the NFL, you would have actually. In the NFL, if you catch the football and then you go into the stands and a fan rips it away from you, that is actually an incomplete pass.
Wait,
you have to survive the ground and the fans.
Mookie get down? Was it his 1 foot twice,
I
or
thought
did
he got both feet? I thought he
Yeah.
got both feet, but I have to go back and look.
He may have been hopping. If he's hopping, that's incomplete.
It is absolutely incomplete.
That quote just screams of, if someone breaks into my house, I'll have no hesitation. And then you do hesitate in the moment of truth and then basically look like a jackass like everyone else.
We're not going to go out of our way to attack. Like, these guys are 10 times worse than Bartman. And Bartman's life was ruined.
Yeah, Bartman didn't really.
Bartman's life was ruined.
I don't think Moises Alou was getting that, by the way.
Well, I mean, but it was right there on the edge. He's reaching up, right? Yeah. I mean, like, he did what he did what 99% of the fans would have done in that exact situation.
Moises Alou, noted great defender.
Yeah. Alex Gonzalez, the biggest beneficiary of Steve Bartman that night was Alex Gonzalez because of his terrible error that people forgot about that would have put the Cubs into, that was the championship series, right? Would have put the Cubs into the next round if he just doesn't commit the error. And he does. And then Bartman happens, and people remember that instead of the guy who would have been the GOAT, not the good GOAT, but the guy who would have been to blame in a bad error. These guys way worse than that. And that guy's life was ruined and had to move away and never went back to a Cubs game. Like, just for, like, these are the only fans I remember that I can think of doing this. Like, we know about, was it the League family, the father-son, the guys that went out and attacked Tom Gamboa? Yeah, that's something that I haven't seen before. And those guys went to jail for that. I've never seen a fan reach out and grab a player and pull him towards it and try to rip off the glove and get the ball out, and it just never happened. And yet, one guy's life is ruined. These guys are getting high fives walking out of the stadium and standing ovations and selfies and hugs.
Dude, also the Steve Bartman one's hilarious. The Marlins scored 8 runs after that. Like, Maybe blame the Cubs
yeah.
players, but
Well, yeah, Gonzalez at shortstop. Blame him.
Yeah.
He's the one that committed the error.
yeah, that's
Kept the inning alive.
gosh. Cubs fans were dumb. Imagine
Well,
not.
no, you get somebody. It's an easy target.
Imagine not blaming Mark Pryor, who
It's an easy
proceeded
target.
to throw a wild pitch that and walked the world. Like what?
Yeah. It's an easy target. We've got the game for you right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB tonight. Game 5, our Major League Baseball playoff coverage on Sports Radio 810, brought to you by Greenlight Dispensary. Check out greenlightdispensary.com for all premium cannabis products this playoffs. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next. WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels. We'll hang out with Mick Schaefer coming up in the 1 o'clock hour. Tonight at 6 o'clock, Hawk Talk with Lance Leipold right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Game 5 of the World Series comes your way tonight. You think there'll be a Game 6?
No.
Think we'll have a Game 6? I
know you want one because
I'm fighting.
Your bet will hit.
Garrett Cole on the road versus home, I feel like, is different. Like the Royals got to him at home, then he pitched in L.A. He threw well in Game 1.
Well, he left the game up 2-1
Yeah.
after 6 innings. I mean, it was the Dodgers won Game 1. We remember Freddie Freeman's home run, but we forget in the bottom of the 8th inning that Shohei Ohtani hit the double that then was mishandled by Gleyber Torres at second base, and the ball rolled into the infield, and Shohei took third. And then Mookie drove him home on a sac fly. That's how they got the tying run. Luke Weaver came in and got Mookie on a sac fly, and then so Luke Weaver came in and retired 5 batters in a row, I believe. Got the sac fly, got the next out, and then the 9th inning, 3 up, 3 down for Luke Weaver. And if Gleyber Torres just simply fields the throw, Shohei's at second base, and because everything would happen exactly the same. We know that.
It's a butterfly. Butterflies don't exist.
I learned about it from the movie The Panic Room. I learned about the butterfly effect from The Panic Room.
It's a Peter Griffin pull. I get it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. I was wondering if you were going to go, what do you mean? Why didn't you get it from the movie? I was just expecting that from you, Sterling, so I was already
I know things.
Defensively fighting against it.
I read books and watch Family Guy. I'm like an onion.
Yeah, I'm very cultured. I read books and I watch Family Guy.
Yeah.
All right, this is what I do. I read books about Family Guy, and then I watch Family Guy.
I do have a Family Guy book.
Is the book better than the series?
No, I'll take the series.
You better. I'll punch you. All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer, KSHB 41 Sports.
What's going on?
Director.
You guys talking sports?
We are talking sports. Grown-up sports is what we're talking about.
What are the odds?
Heavy-hitting, serious hours of intellectual sports discussion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
We need to bring that down. We need to bring that down. We've been a little too serious.
We are now a very serious show that Mick has joined. No more shenanigans.
No.
No.
We need to take ourselves and our sports so seriously.
That's right.
Well, you direct them.
I do.
You even have a chair. You should get one of those director movie chairs.
Yeah, but he stands when he does.
This is my name on the back of it.
Yeah, he stands when he does a lot of this
spelled
stuff.
wrong, shockingly, but
It is.
Yeah.
Is that one F or two Fs? I'm not sure.
Is there S?
Depends on what class it was.
H.
Depends on the class. Game 6, you heard from Sterling there, coming up. Game 5 tonight, right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Game 5. Game 5. It's Game 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Feels like the World Series is going faster than the 4 games of the ALDS. Right?
Yeah, you're right. It does
that
feel
had
like
a
it's
couple
lot
of days
smoother.
off in between it.
This is they started on
Are the Yankees going to last till Halloween? And when was the last time the baseball season ended before Halloween? It might have been a couple of years ago, but it feels like it always goes into November.
Idiot. And last year, because Jeets was Mr. November.
He was.
Because Mr. October was already taken.
Royals played in November.
Yeah, that's right. We talked about the ban for the players or the two fans
who thought they were players. Apparently,
what sport are they playing?
Yeah. Well, they're going to bring
like
the
wrestling.
D. They were bringing the D. They said.
I also passed along. I do wonder what Fox's broadcast tonight, if they say anything about it, or because they are catching a lot. That's one of the sidebar conversations is that Fox's broadcast is catching a lot of heat. Joe Davis in Game 1 went from what an amazing call to in Game 4 when he said A for effort from the fan there to try to rip. He's got a lot of flack from that. And then Fox came back with their fan cam, and they came back from break. Here's our fan cam, and the first fans they showed were those two fans hugging each other. And
oh, no way.
Yeah, getting ready to be kicked out of the game. They're the first two fans in their fan cam. Like Fox sort of embraced it, while the reaction nationally was like, dude, they ripped at his arm. They could have, hurt him. So I do wonder if there will be something tonight, or if they just say, we're moving on. We don't need to acknowledge it. We're moving on. Yeah, said that. That was dumb in the moment. Was having fun. It was early in the game. Joe Davis is still a phenomenal play-by-play
I don't know.
broadcaster.
I don't know where I land on that. I don't know that it has to be a funeral, right? I don't have to be over the top, stompy foot about it. Those guys should be banned probably for life.
I'm good with that.
I mean, I love the one guy like motioning, like, no, this is our area here.
Area, right?
He's in our area, so we can do whatever we want to him. I guess.
Do you like him or the guy next to him that had a sliding mitt on? As a fan,
he may have got called in.
You never know
I
when
thought it
you're
was
going to be asked to slide into a base.
John Boy stole your tweet, by the way, because they screen grabbed and said, "Don't let this catastrophe distract you from a fan wearing a mitt in the stands."
I thought it was a cast last night. I thought the dude had a cast on.
I didn't see it when I could not stop
because it was like neon green. It was like green,
neon green.
Yeah, I thought it was a cast. And then I'm showing the video to my son this morning. And I'm like, hold on, is that a slide? I never even noticed.
Not just a sliding one either. Probably the nicest one you could find. Too.
I'm saying it was the EVO brand. Like it was the expensive. Like he spent good money on that.
He's got the same one as Bobby Witt.
He's the kind of guy in softball that tries to break up double plays. Guaranteed.
What kind of guy is he in life? In that, like,
the type of guy who plays softball and tries to break up double plays.
Your first reaction for, I would guess, almost everybody out there is to back away, right? He's come, whoever it is, someone's barreling into you. You're not fighting over the ball. He's caught the ball. He's carried that into the stands. And your first initial reaction, your first instinct is to just go after this guy's glove and his hand, just rip it off.
A criminal.
Probably so.
That's
probably so.
A guy willing to commit assault.
That's assault, brother.
I now I need to just show Mick the fact that
I'm
not seeing the John Boy tweet, so I don't know. I just pulled up his Twitter account.
Might be the wrong.
Was it John Boy Media maybe, as opposed to John Boy?
Yeah, that's the other problem. Yeah.
Oh,
like 10 accounts.
Is there 2 accounts?
Here it is. Look,
So many John Boys.
It's like a greenish yellowish, bluish, like sticks out.
It's an Evo shield.
Yes,
it's an Evo shield sliding.
Oh,
bit.
you thought I was lying? No, I wasn't lying to you.
But when it happened, it was like all quick and everything. I thought it was like some dude had a cast on. It happens.
That's their logo, right? It's Evo shield.
That's what I'm telling you.
Right.
That's like
what is he? I
What
get
I'm saying, it's like
expensive.
the nicest one you can find.
Yes,
too,
I
not
know,
just like a.
What is he planning to do? I get bringing a glove to the game, even if you're an adult, whatever. You might catch a foul ball or a
like-
human in this case.
It is like the most expensive, legit sliding mitt you can find.
Is he worried about like foul balls over there? He's going to put it over his face, save his girlfriend.
Well,
It's going to bounce off the Evo shield.
He knows he has bad hand
Right,
eyes.
he's
so
just going
he's
to throw the backhand out there.
No, it's general admission on the wall, so the first one there stands there. So if the first one to touch, and they go replay. So he's got the extra long oven mitt there to be able to touch. Like I don't know. it's just
Or how
absurd,
about
but-
this? It's apparently a very abrasive section over there, to where like maybe you're throwing hands a lot over there.
It
He's
was John-
He's
yeah.
protecting his hands.
It was John Boy Media.
John Boy Media.
Excuse me.
They get
yeah.
into slap fights every once in a while.
Yeah, bam.
Like Josh Kaiser tweeted out, said, when it comes to baseball, there's only one thing dumber than lifetime stadium bans: one-game bans. It's,
Yeah, how did they,
Buster only said this morning a lifetime ban with eligibility of parole after 10 years. So after 10 years, these longtime season ticket holders, after 10 years, you can go back to the Yankees and say, we'd like to apply for reinstatement
And
to be season
what's
ticket holders
keeping
again.
you from just grabbing somebody else's ticket and walking through? Nothing is the
Mick,
answer.
and these guys, they weren't apologetic. They're like,
Oh,
they're
the
like,
whole
we-
section was giving them high fives.
But,
They were hugging.
but after, like, yeah, we knew we were going to probably get kicked out, but we do it again. You got to protect our section. I'm sitting here like, how
part
are
of
they
the
not
core
banned?
form.
Like,
Yeah.
like, they should totally be banned because if another situation happens, they're going to do it
They're doing it
again.
again.
You should have ripped the ball out of A-Rod. He's a biracial angel. Mick Schaefer is hanging out with us. You know, Mick, we asked this question in the noon hour, and Sterling and I talked about it a little bit. We went through, obviously, with looking at the local teams and what's left to play for. We know the answer with K-State. They can make the college football playoff. They can be a top 4 seed. They can get a bye. Although, we did also ask the question as another sidebar. That would you rather be the 4 seed or the 5 seed? 4 seed you get a bye, but 5 seed you get a home playoff game in the first ever college football playoff. That's cool. But what is?
Well, don't you
what
get
is-
a home game if you're the 4 seed?
It's bowl games after that. The 4 seed after you
Oh,
get
gotcha.
the bye,
Yeah.
and then it goes to neutral sites. So 5 through. So
I still
5,
think
6,
4
7,
and 12
8.
team's going to be
I know.
pretty salty. It's not like you're getting like a
Right.
6-6 UAB
Yes.
squad running in. It's
But,
it's a team just as good, maybe better than
Yeah,
you.
5, 6, 7, 8 get home games.
I'll sacrifice all the bars and
right.
the restaurants get all the money
Oh, nice.
to make it to.
I bet the ADs
You're
the
playing
top
Alabama
8.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet
Exactly.
the ADs and the and the local bars and everything would prefer to be the 5 seed. But Missouri and Kansas, like, what do they have left to play for as we go through the rest of the season? Kansas State still has everything that they want to accomplish right in front of them, but Missouri's not going to make the playoff with the 2 losses and losing by a combined 65 points. And Kansas has to win the next 4 games, including the next 3 against ranked
really good
opponents,
teams.
to make a bowl. And they lost to Kansas State, so that sort of carrot of, well, they got that Kansas State game out there. What is left to play for these 2 teams?
So for Missouri, 10 wins, I think, and I think that is a big season. It's always been a big season for the teams I cheer for. If you get to 10 wins, I think that's a big deal, right? Whether you're making a playoff or you're making a New Year's Day bowl or you're going to the, I don't know,
Independence Bowl or-
Alabama, Alamo Bowl, whatever. And so
Freedom Isn't Free Bowl across
right,
the Bucko
right.
5.
And I think that includes, that's a margin for error there. Even another loss, 10-3, I think is a good season. It's a real good season. You win 10 games in college football, especially in the SEC, you're a really good team. That's something you can hang your hat on.
Missouri, in their history, has
No.
won.
Who are you? Who are
I
you?
have expectations.
He's
Since
spoiled.
for Mizzou,
He's spoiled.
What did you start cheering for them last year?
No, since I was
You got to
born.
know who you are.
Right.
Since I was
and here's the
born.
point. Missouri has won back-to-back. Missouri has won double digits back-to-back seasons twice in their history. This would only be the 3rd time. If they get to 10 wins, even
No, but
9
like-
regular season and a bowl, they'd be back-to-back. They'd have 21 wins in 2 seasons if they.
You're going to be disappointed a lot.
Don't
in life.
settle for mediocrity.
That's
That
not
isn't
mediocrity.
mediocrity. In
It's
college
10
football,
wins in
that's not
college
mediocrity.
football, man.
But you got to have at least goals. You can't just
They
keep
have
saying
goals.
No,
They
they
have goals,
can't.
get to
They keep
double-digit
coming up
wins.
just short. So
They
Keep coming
coming
up.
up
This
just
is
short.
the first ever
You knew
college football. They would have been in the
expectations.
playoff last year.
100% they were.
Okay, well then in the
That
last
was
2
the goal
years,
this year.
They did it once.
so in the last 2 years they would have made the playoffs once,
But they didn't.
right? Because they didn't have it. But if
Sure, and they didn't.
You need to start cheering for Georgia then.
No,
Get rid of Mizzou.
I don't
Start
do
cheering
that.
for Georgia.
I don't do
Yeah.
that.
you can have expectations while appreciating,
Yeah.
what a If this is a down season for Mizzou, then
No, because you have to
haven't watched
understand
much
how the
Mizzou.
schedule actually played out this season.
Oh, I
for
understand
them.
that. I
Like
understand
this
that.
was their chance. This was the opportunity. You
It
had
was.
Luther Burden, Theo Weiss. He came back. Brady Cook, who then got injured. Like,
So Missouri has their one shot, one opportunity. They didn't want to miss their chance to blow. It comes, once in a lifetime, as a little white boy from Detroit once said, as Jameis Winston said. But
Jaden Milroe came back for Alabama. There's good players on scholarship on other teams too.
I'm not saying
so they
there
got-
isn't.
right, but you're upset because the way the schedule broke, and this was their chance to make the playoff. Therefore, going 10-2 is not good enough because they didn't make the playoff. If they finished 13th in the country this year, would that still be a disappointing season?
Slightly.
Okay, because they didn't make the playoff if they finished 13th.
Correct.
Only the
That's-
top
that's-
12.
that's
so
my
it was
point.
playoff or bust for you.
Yes,
this year. Okay.
this was play for bust for me this year
Okay.
for Missouri. How I kind of think it is for K-State too. I think it would be slightly disappointing for K-State if they didn't make the college football playoff this year. I think you'd
You
be.
know, it's only 12 teams, right? It's not
Yeah,
like
I get that.
32.
No, I get that.
It's hard to make it, especially if you're a Big 12 team.
Well, Kansas State's
They're
going to
gonna
have to
have
win. Kansas State's going to have to win 5 in a row
Yeah,
if they're
correct.
going to make the playoffs. So
Yeah.
if they don't win
And
5 in a row,
they did not have. I don't think K-State fans had playoff or bust expectations.
I don't think
whatsoever.
You can. I don't think you can.
I
There's
know
no team
all
out
the Missouri
there.
fans I've talked to that I going into this year, all the alumni, all
Were
the people-
drunk.
I was.
Had the Men in Black came through with the little
We all
memory
thought it was-
forgetter thing.
We
and
all thought
and
Mizzou was player for bust this
it's actually
year.
called the memory forgetter thing.
Here's the deal, and this is not an insult to Mizzou fans, but it's a very new thing for them to wear, like, or for I guess people thinking that way, to where like expectations don't always hit in college football.
100% they don't.
Not at all.
Ask
I
Kansas
mean,
fans.
I mean, they don't always hit, and so
Agreed.
and so.
I bet KU would love to have a hollow Tennessee
Mizzou
season.
just hasn't been in this situation much. So if you think that it was playoff or bust this season, that to me means you're kind of like naive.
Yeah,
and you haven't
they've had 2
had
chances
these seasons before.
in the history of their school. They've had 2 seasons where they were a win away from playing for a national title.
Oklahoma State made the
history.
Big 12 championship game last year, won 10 games, brought the entire offense back, hasn't won a Big 12 game. I'm like,
And now people
yeah,
are
that's
asking.
how it works
Now people are
sometimes.
asking Ollie Gordon if he's just going to sit out the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Like, are you? He said no. By the way,
I was
in case
asking
you're
if
wondering.
have you sit out the season so far? That was my question to him.
Are you gonna play the rest of the
Have you,
season?
oh,
Because
you've been out there.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Huh. Would you try playing quarterback? Maybe that would help. They have one. They've got Oklahoma after the bye. A lot of this depends on Brady Cook because
of course.
they can.
Drew Pine's out
They
there.
can end
They're
with,
going 6-6.
They can be 6-6 this year if Drew Pine's out there playing quarterback. That's just reality, and that's sort of the volatility of these last 4 games, which will go a long way in saying how quote unquote successful, whelmed, or underwhelmed. Because you can be whelmed with 9 or 10 wins. You can be overwhelmed with the college football playoff, and I guess you could be underwhelmed if they just didn't make the college football playoff.
South Carolina is probably the biggest tripping point, right?
Out
the rest
South
of the way.
Carolina. Arkansas is decent this year, but
But
you're
again,
at
if
home.
Brady Cook is playing without Brady Cook, they're all.
then yeah,
Sure,
then,
yeah.
then,
they
they're,
can
then
lose
they're
all.
0-4.
They can lose all 4 of those.
Get him
games.
healthy. Don't lose to OU for me, okay? That'd be nice.
Dude,
But I absolutely think there's a huge difference between 10-2 and 8-4, and 10-2 and 9-3.
Oh,
I mean, it's
100%.
just
You
double-digit wins.
Get to 9 regular season wins, go to a bowl and win. You won 11 games last year with the bowl and 10 games this year with the bowl. And it's funny because last year was seen as this like amazing year, and they won 11. They won 10 regular season games.
They played
they
above.
won a bowl game.
Well,
I
because
believe
they
they
would
played
have been a college football playoff team, and they played. Yeah, Mick,
Which
they
is
played
pretty
above
awesome.
what
last year, and they're playing a
expectations
little
were.
bit below. Yeah.
Correct. I mean,
So
expectations
the
last
last
year.
2 years they've sort of whelmed everybody.
Well, no. Last year was phenomenal because also last
overwhelming.
year it was overwhelming.
And
last
this year you're underwhelmed.
Correct. So I've been
you've
whelmed
been
over
whelmed
the past 2 years
Yes.
in totality. But no, I've been more overwhelmed last year than I think
Yeah.
underwhelmed this year.
That's
I don't know,
and
man.
that's where I think my pushback comes from is remembering what the conversation was going into last year.
Well, it's how they
of,
finished last year too. You have to realize that they finished on a high note early in the year. They almost lost to Memphis. They struggled against
they won.
K-State,
Yeah.
and then but what
Well,
happened as the
K-State's a
season
good
went
team.
on? The season went on. They started looking better. They started to gel more. I know Ohio State had some guys sitting out, but Mizzou did too. And then you go and win it with the Cotton Bowl, right? 14 to that was huge for the program. I mean that was really big, and so we all thought that was the jumping off point. That was that set expectations. Fair or not, it did. You have all your main pieces, the big pieces coming back offensively. Defense we knew was going to take a step back. You lose your DC, all that stuff. Defense hasn't necessarily been the major issue here. It's been the offense.
And the offensive line.
And it's just been disappointing.
Well,
I would say the disappointment is less the losses and more the spread. You had no shot.
We talked about that
in those two games.
It's like you rolled over and you died.
There's no shame in losing in Tuscaloosa.
Well, that's why I said even if you lose to A&M.
At A&M, one of the bigger home field advantages in all of college football. It's just by the combined, how many points?
65.
65.
The issue is like you can be. I think you can be disappointed. I'd be disappointed. I'm disappointed that they don't have a chance. Like there's the next 4 games they play. There's no conversation of making the playoffs or not because they lost by 65 points in those combined in those 2 games. I think there's disappointment, but I still think in the reality of college football that what's left to play for and what can still be viewed as a good season, a successful from where. The spot that Missouri's in historically and across the country right now, yeah, they had a great opportunity in front of them. But it doesn't mean that you lose Luther Burden, therefore now you just aren't going to win games anymore.
No, I'm not
because they aren't
saying
even
that,
using Luther Burden.
But my point is you lose
If
Burden.
they lose Luther Burden, would it be much different than them not using Luther Burden?
You lose Burden, you lose Theo Weiss. Now who's your quarterback next year?
I agree.
That quarterback's clearly not on this roster.
Well, you might be just redshirting with
Sam
Tommy John.
Sam Horn?
Maybe.
I mean, okay.
Or the recruit coming in.
That's my point. That this year they went all in. This was the we're going all in year. And again, they would still be in contention if you lose to A&M by 3, you lose to Bama by a touchdown. You could still make a case that if they lost only those 2 games, maybe they sneak in as the number 10, 11, 12. Now you don't. And that's why it's disappointing. Again, it's not just the record. I'm not going by record. It's what the result. It's how they've played.
I agree. I think if you continue to stack winning seasons and stack recruiting classes and you become more consistent, the more chances you give yourself to have this is the opportunity they have this year, the more chances you have, the better chance you have of actually. I mean, Missouri not going to a Final Four, the worst part is that they're, 4 Elite Eights.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If they've been to 10 Elite Eights, I promise you they'd probably be to at least 1 Final Four. But they can't even win 3 games in a row in the tournament. Just getting to knock on the door to make the Final Four. Missouri needs to continue to put successful seasons together so that Eli still goes out on the recruiting trail and, hey, this is what we're building. This is what you're a part of. So if the next 4 games are disastrous, that's my worry about fans, jumping ship and being like, well, this thing's over. Because if the next 4 weeks are disastrous, well, are you getting recruits in, or is Williams Nwora going somewhere else? Are other guys transferring? Are the guys that you had already had committed, are they going somewhere else? Because now all of a sudden, hey, you guys were going to make the playoff, and now you won 7 games, and fans are pretty pissed off, and maybe they want the coach fired. I don't know that I'm going here as opposed to
I'm not saying
back-to-back 10-win seasons or back-to-back double-digit win seasons. Yeah, it didn't work out there, but yeah, I'm going to this program that seems to be on stable footing.
Well, I think you make a good point. It's not just the 2 and the 6-2 record. It's the 6
dash.
as well. Well,
the dash. It's what happens in the dash.
Well, and I mean they're a lot closer to being 4-4 than they are 7-1.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
So those 2 games against Auburn and
Vanderbilt and even BC.
Boston College. And so
Vanderbilt's a marquee win.
It is now, yeah. It is now. And so, are they mathematically eliminated yet from the SEC championship game? Because it's all one big division, right? And they take the top 2 now? There's no East and West,
there's
right?
no East and West, yeah.
So it's just the top 2, kind of like the 16-team Big 12.
Mathematically, probably not, but they would need like 1,000 different things probably to go their way.
When the Chiefs made the playoffs, and what year was that? When they were like 9 and 7 or whatever it was.
Now double that.
Now double that.
Now double what you needed with that. Yeah, because I mean,
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
they would
7,
need to win
9 teams ahead of them.
They would need to win out, and they would need.
I don't see that. I see 7 teams ahead of them.
There's
5. Two are tied. Sorry,
I could be wrong. I could be.
Two are tied.
Well, there's 6 because Alabama has. Well, if we're looking at 2 losses, yeah, because there's a 3-2 record for Alabama and Arkansas. Missouri's just 2-2 at this point, tied with Ole Miss and Vandy. But they're ahead of Vandy because they beat Vandy and take that. Vanderbilt anchors down. That's more like your game. Your record went down after you played Missouri, punks.
Crazy that Kentucky's already played 6 conference games.
Have they though? the fans would tell you
Have
that
they
haven't
really?
really played.
Wow.
They haven't really played in those 6
So
conference games.
They still have like 2 non-con games left.
Yeah, well,
they're
they play
November
Louisville,
FCS.
Louisville at the end of the
Louisville, yeah.
November FCS, and then
And then
Louisville.
Louisville,
Yeah,
you know,
Texas. They have Texas.
like Clemson
and
only has
Louisville.
a couple of conference games
And
left, and then
Tennessee,
because
yeah.
they've got
Murray State.
they got South Carolina, you know, Georgia Tech. Got those games coming up there. I don't think they're mathematically eliminated, but they are. Braden Gall brought up an interesting point yesterday. He said it may not be great for Missouri fans. He said, but what the college football playoff committee could do is, if Mizzou wins the next 4 games and they're 10-2, they would say, see, we left a 2-loss SEC team out
Yeah.
as an at-large. Like, we didn't take it. That's a 2-loss SEC
They
team.
might be leaving 2 or 3.
Exactly. Yeah,
SEC
right.
2-loss teams out.
But he's like, if
Ole Miss could
you
be
know,
one.
if they get into this and it's like, well, you took this 1 loss or 2, you took this 2-loss team. Like, yeah, but we left the 2-loss SEC team out of the playoff. We're not
Yeah.
just going out of our way for the SEC.
Yeah, there's 6 SEC. They have to field as SEC. But
like, so my response with that was, oh, no. You don't get to use Missouri as a sacrificial lamb, SEC, when you've got fans in the SEC saying that they don't deserve to be in the SEC. Oh, you don't get to then use them to your advantage. Hell no.
Yeah, they will. What are you talking about?
I know, I'm just saying. They don't deserve
Nobody's
to
still saying they've moved on to other teams that say they don't belong in the SEC.
be. Like who?
I don't know. Mizzou's been in long enough.
Honestly,
I
Mississippi
mean, they've earned their
State,
keep.
Arkansas.
They've earned their keep.
What
We
has
know.
Arkansas done?
We know what teams.
They've had some basketball. I'm just
Basketball,
Yeah, they've had some
sure.
basketball. Mississippi State. What have they done?
It's just that they were already there. They were already at the party. It's the new guy at the party.
They
and
produced
it's like, well,
Chris
you don't-
Jones and
That's
Wes
exactly
Peary.
right.
Chris Jones and Wes Peary.
Vanderbilt's at least great
Yep.
at baseball, so I'll give them that.
Great at baseball.
and they really help the
And
the,
both of them-
GPA?
GPA. They need that.
Jones and Wes Peary coming up on the Full Monty.
What's that?
Both of them appearing on the Full Monty coming up.
I don't know what the full Monty is.
Isn't it a TV show where they go Full Monty and Chris Jones is part of it?
What is full money?
Is that naked?
Yeah, it's the Full Monty.
Okay.
That means
I have no idea.
completely, totally.
Full
you
Monty.
haven't seen like
I've
there's
seen
been
the
like
movie The Full Monty.
there's been like 15 like every other commercial break is for.
Wait, why do they
this
call
TV
it the
show.
full Monty?
Chris Jones is on that?
Yeah,
Full Monty
That's
meaning
the
I mean, it's
full
like
Monty.
naked.
the full amount expected, desired, or possible. A striptease performance involving full nudity, especially by a man.
yeah,
It's British apparently. So.
It is.
yeah.
In it.
And apparently apparently it's Chris Jones in it. So yeah, there you go.
Wow. No,
So I've got
Wes
full
will
Monty on
not.
the show then.
Wes will not be full Monty.
Okay, great.
He will just
But
have
he
a
is
bow.
from
he will
Mississippi
have,
State.
he will have his bow tie on. He will have one piece of article of clothing on.
I wear
Shoes.
Adidas, or I wear nothing. Well, almost nothing. And he fixes his bow tie like Jim McMahon and his sunglasses. More zone next. I would continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Sterling Holmes, Dylan Michaels, Mick Schaefer. All right, we got the Dewey's Pizza text of the day. Let's give that away. Dewey's Pizza located in Ranch Mart off 103rd and Mission. Delicious pizzas, calzones, and salads. Known for the creative pizzas. Try the Ryan's Inferno, their take on a buffalo chicken pizza. The Don Corleone, the Bronx Bomber, or the Porky Fig. Dine in or carry out. Also great drink specials, beer and wine selection. Check them out at deweyspizza.com or again in that Ranch Mart off 103rd and Mission. Our text of the day goes to, and we will let you know who won the text of the day, but it goes to the text that came at one of the first ones we got today as we were talking about these tools for the at the Yankees game that said that they play defense, that they're a part of the defense, that they play in this, that the ball's in our area. We're not going to go out of our way to attack. If it's in our area, we're going to D up. Someone defends, someone knocks the ball. We talk about it. We're willing to do this for our team.
Wait, they said that?
Yeah, they said that in an interview. Yeah. Yep. He said this. We talked about it. We practiced, and that's why you saw the
practice it.
That's why you saw the other guy grab Mookie Betts' other arm.
Yes,
because you grab the arm, you play defense, and we knock the ball.
No one's going to notice that he's already caught the ball.
So dumb. But a text that came in earlier today said,
it wasn't on the transfer. No, he lost it himself. It wasn't on the transfer.
Text says, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. So there you go. There's our Dewey's Pizza text of the day. And that game right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
They're going to be loved by Yankee fans. That's how this works, by the way.
They already are.
There's not going to be any level-headedness applied.
They already are. Absolutely loved by Yankees fans. I went and looked at the other three teams in the AFC, not named the Chiefs, that are sort of the top-heavy parts of the AFC. That would be the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, and the Houston Texans. Because we brought this up yesterday, Mick, for the frauds and fakes, and the Chiefs are barely winning.
You can put the Steelers in that category?
I didn't. Maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit different the way that Russell Wilson is playing. I'll give it another 5 or 6 weeks, and then just really
just 5 or 6
let it
weeks,
breathe a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't want to jump to conclusions.
Well, you have to let the wine breathe. They're like
right.
a wine.
Yeah, I don't want to jump to this is Matt that has
Why do you
conclusions
let
on
wine breathe, by the way? Does anyone know? Will it hurt you?
I'm not a wino.
The aroma.
Don't drink it.
The aroma.
I'm a
wine
wine
is
guy.
a fully immersive experience.
Yeah, I'm not a wine guy.
It hits all
you
of the
immerse
senses.
yourself like a bath.
That's exactly
like you're
right.
going to take
Yes,
a bath.
Take a
in
wine bath. It helps the pores. Yep. But for the they're just they're getting by the skin of their teeth. They're just barely winning these games. So I went and looked, and in the fourth quarter games this year, the Chiefs have a 10-point lead in 4 of the 7 games in the fourth quarter. They have led by double digits in 4 of the 7 games, and they have trailed in the fourth quarter a total of 9 minutes and 28 seconds. And that was all in week 2 against the Bengals.
Bengals, yeah.
They have trailed in only 1 game this year in the fourth quarter.
And I think the numbers are something like 48-22, fourth quarter scoring. I think it's something similar to that. The last 3 or 4 weeks have been like 31-12. We ran a graphic on it, and we compared all those teams.
Oh, good.
And I can't remember. I think it was maybe the Ravens have been outscored, I believe, a lot in the fourth quarter.
They've had some rough games. They have 3 losses this year. The
They
Ravens do. I also looked at as like, well, they're barely getting by. They're they're having to find ways to win at the end of the game. Well, since week 3, the Chiefs defense has been on the field in the fourth quarter, protecting a 1-score lead, only 3 possessions. 3 possessions, 2 against the Chargers, and this last week against the Raiders. Those 3 possessions was a 3-and-out, 1 first down, and then a punt, and then 2 plays fumble. For a total of 10 plays, 19 yards since the Chiefs' defense is out there in the fourth quarter since week 3. So how close these games are, and they're barely winning, and oh man, they're so close to losing these games, and it's going to bite them. Only winning by an average of 7 points.
Who's not close to losing a game in the NFL?
Well, there are.
Did they watch other games?
Well, literally every other team is close to losing a game because every other team in the NFL has at least lost 1 game. So they've been close to losing games.
Everyone in the AFC has at least lost 2.
But I looked at the other 3. Buffalo, Baltimore, Houston. Fourth quarter, double-digit lead. Buffalo and Baltimore have both had double-digit leads in 5 of the 8 games in the fourth quarter, 5 of the 8. Chiefs are at 4 of 7. They're at 5 of 8. Houston only 2 of 8. Houston, they're still a 2-loss team, but they've had a double-digit lead in only 2 of their 8 games, and they've lost 2. doesn't really seem like a team that, boy, if Houston doesn't figure it out, I mean, they may not be in contention for the 2 or 3 seed.
Oh, you forget. People will excuse injuries for them and say that's
They
why.
are injured.
But they don't do that for KC. For KC,
Well,
it's
because
just, well, they play.
Mahomes has a negative touchdown to interception ratio, and if that's the case, then injuries don't matter.
Is it 8 to 9 now?
Yeah, 8 to 9.
Which makes it even funnier when you realize that they're playing their worst football basically by turnover margin, by Mahomes standards,
Sure, yeah.
and they're still undefeated. So
Be
what
a
you
lot better, and
so,
they get be a lot healthier.
So when you think that maybe that would say that they're playing as bad as they could and they're undefeated, instead of somehow the national media spins that
I
as
think there was a Baltimore Raven that told me that was the best they're going to play.
And that was
Right?
the worst the Ravens were going to play.
The worst the Ravens were going to play.
So in the fourth quarter trailing, we know the Chiefs 9 minutes and 28 seconds. Buffalo has trailed in the fourth quarter this year for a total of 26 minutes, almost a full half of fourth quarter play. Baltimore, 32 minutes and 17 seconds. And the Houston Texans have trailed in the fourth quarter this year with their 6-2 record for 43 minutes.
Wow.
They have trailed in the fourth quarter this year. The
and
Chiefs,
that's out of
9.5.
8 times 15, right? Is that what we're doing then, basically? They played 8 games.
Yep.
And that is
That would be
120.
Yeah,
So
120.
more than a third of the time, they have trailed. Okay.
They have trailed, and the Chiefs are of their 105. They have trailed for 9.5 minutes.
9.5 minutes.
Of the 105 fourth quarter minutes that they have played.
Better
So,
percentage.
I don't know. Maybe it's not as close as what I'm saying. I just want to look at we did it for the Chiefs yesterday. So I wanted to look at Buffalo, Baltimore, and Houston to see, how they compared to it. And yeah,
They don't compare, just in the other direction.
3 times as many, as much.
It was
9
so funny.
minutes to 27 minutes.
I'm sure you're referring to the dude on CBS Sports or
I mean,
whatever.
he's not the only one, though, and it's like him calling them a fake undefeated team. All right, whatever. His take wasn't all that crazy, and him saying, "I don't think they're going to go undefeated because going undefeated
Nobody's
is hard."
talking about them going undefeated.
Well, that was the question.
No
That was
Chiefs fan thinks they're going to go undefeated.
I don't know. I say November 11th is when
Sterling's
going to
be really upset if they don't go undefeated. He'll call it a failure of a season.
No,
15-2 will suck.
I never don't.
If they don't win the Super Bowl, it's a
Mick.
failure because this is their one chance that he can ever remember for them to go 3 in a row.
That's it.
You
How many chances do the Chiefs get to go 3 in a row?
You guys are being absurd and spinning things
Look,
you're spinning a tale of lies.
This is the only chance the Chiefs with Mahomes and Kelsey have to win 3 straight Super Bowls. And if they don't take advantage of it, then it's a failure of a season.
I will cross. Give me some more coffee, and I will cross this little
I don't think you will.
partition between us, and I will hand you a strongly worded letter.
The response to your taken out of context.
But I mean, no, I think it was a ridiculous take in that, he picked. I mean, every year we have somebody going 7-0, right? In the NFL or close to it, right? 6-0, 8-0,
Cardinals
8-0.
2 years ago were 9-0.
Were they really?
With Cliff,
I forgot about
Cliff
that.
Kingsbury.
So,
what is this?
So
team?
to call the team that is 7-0, no matter what the point spreads have been, the margin of victory, on the heels of 2 Super Bowl wins, to call that team the fakest undefeated team is just ludicrous. He's on drugs.
The only undefeated team.
Well, they are the fakest
only one.
They're the fakest undefeated team this year. So he was right about that. Technically, he said
And then
they're
the realists,
fakest
too,
undefeated
right now.
team this year. So do we really think it was that outlandish?
And then he
of a
also
take?
said they could lose the Broncos this week, and I said, no, sir, they cannot.
I'm willing to bet him $1,000.
I'll bet him more than that.
I'll bet him whatever he wants, however much he wants to spend. I'll bet that they do not lose to the Broncos this weekend. Now, if he were to say they could lose to the Broncos the next weekend that they play football,
Did the Broncos play football?
that the Chiefs play football, because they play Monday night.
I don't know.
We
He didn't say weekend. He said week.
We could all harmonize that.
Need a little bit higher, maybe a little bit higher. Sterling, come on in, a little bit higher. Sterling, right there. There we go. 7-0 the Cardinals were a few years ago. 7-0. And then they were such a fake 7-0 team, they lost to the Packers at home.
That's a fake 7.
Fake 7-0
Although,
team.
I mean,
Remember the Packers were undefeated and lost to the Romeo Crennel Chiefs? You think
Yeah, I
that
remember
was
that.
a fake team?
when
baby?
I saw that game, I was like, there's no such thing as an upset in the NFL. There's no such thing. When that game happened, that changed me. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at this league
I'm
differently
changed.
now. There's no They're all so close. Nothing will ever surprise me.
I'm a changed man.
I'm a changed man. Thank you,
Did
Romeo.
you go to therapy? Are you working on yourself? Chiefs beat the Packers with
They were
Romeo
like-
Cornell.
yeah,
Changed me
crazy.
forever. I'll never be the same, man.
What were they? 12-0, 14-0? What were they?
I'm trying to look up that.
They weren't 14, I don't think.
No, they were like 14-2
They were on a
that year,
19.
though.
They were on a 19-game win streak. That was when Kyle Orton threw for almost 3 bills, 299 yards.
So they're coming off the Super Bowl then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had won 19 straight games.
Wow.
First loss since
My-
December 19, 2010.
Pretty
Jeez.
good. It's pretty good. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue rolling more zone next. I'm just waiting for that thing to happen. It always reminds me of like a video game where you fall.
That's my mood right now. Finding out that you guys are doing a joint.
Don't say what it is. Don't
Halloween costume tomorrow.
We've done it
but
every
I'm
year
not
for
involved.
1 year.
You can join us, bud. You're okay.
Well, it's
This is
a
the,
little
you're
late.
invited.
This is the second
little
year
late.
annual anniversary.
Was I invited last year?
That's a great question.
I wasn't.
I know
here
the
last
answer.
year,
It
so
was
no,
not.
I don't.
Hang
Uh,
on.
I wasn't here.
I gotta
wasn't here.
confirm if it was on a Wednesday, Monday, or Friday.
See, that's
I
the thing.
guarantee you it was
Well,
a
no, it was on a
Wednesday or
Tuesday
Friday.
because it's leap year. So it was on a Tuesday last year.
Confirm that, please.
Hallows.
I will come in.
All
I have
Hallows
nothing,
Eve was
I
a
have
Monday.
Nothing else going on.
Or a
in my life.
Tuesday.
I will come in.
Yep, Jason's right. It's Tuesday.
Okay, well then
I'll come in.
I'll tell you what we're doing, and then after the show's over, you can go and buy all the materials and then
You
take
know
it
what?
back Friday.
I don't want to guilt you into it.
No, we want you, Mick. We want
Legit, if
you.
it was a Wednesday or Friday, I would have absolutely
Your
told you.
costume idea is kind of a trio thing.
It can be a
I've
quad
watched the
thing.
show.
We're not the
It could be a
Musketeers.
quad
We're
thing.
going as the Three Musketeers. We're so excited. We're actually going as the Three Mouseketeers.
I'm going to go as a
so-
Mr. Goodbar because that is the best candy ever in life. And if you give those out, I will keep arriving at your house over and over
You'd
again
be
in
a
different
Mr.
costumes.
Great
So-
Bar, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's the best.
Don't give out Mr. Good bars to McShafer because once you feed him, he's like a
I will
cat.
not leave.
He
I'll be
will
like
continue to come
Gremlin.
back. Just
Be like Gizmo.
What's on a good bar? I've had it, but it's been a while.
Nothing. Just peanuts and milk chocolate. That's it. That's all you need.
don't feed Mick a Mr. Good bar after midnight.
Yeah. We finally. I showed the kids Gremlins the other day. That is horrible special effects.
No,
that
I
was
showed
a long time
we
ago.
watched Gremlins last night in our house.
I'm like, this.
too.
I don't know why I love this music. This movie makes no sense. Horrible acting.
Yeah.
The main guy is awful.
Yeah.
Phoebe Cates, well done. But everything else is like, oh, this
Who's
is really
Phoebe
bad.
Cates?
Yeah.
No, Who is Phoebe Cates? Let's go.
Yeah, my
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
My 5-year-old daughter couldn't sleep
Oh,
last night,
wow,
but she's
yeah.
seen Gremlins now.
She
so
saw it?
We've seen it now as a family.
She'll
It's a
never
family.
get in a pool again.
It's a family thing.
Yeah.
You know. She at the beginning she was loving the Mogwai. I want one of those. I'm like, oh well, let's see. Let's see what happens now.
Let's see what happens
Yeah.
once they feed them after midnight.
Yeah.
There's-
Teach you about
hey,
having pets, huh?
There's Gremlins too. You can show her that next week.
No, we were watching Ghostbusters while carving pumpkins and decorating
that's fun.
Halloween cookies last night, and then the
new one or the original?
the original,
The
one.
OG one.
the one
Yeah,
that's
good
PG
movies.
because PG-13 didn't exist then.
Oh, it didn't in 1984
so
or
it's PG,
whatever.
You know, when
Okay.
they have the scene where there's sort of things are
Is
happening
it
on the bed.
closer to R or is it closer to PG?
It's PG-13.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was the dog part where it's okay. Who brought the dog?
Who brought the dog?
That's she was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, but you will. Thank you, Mick.
Anytime.
Hey, tomorrow you should
Except
join
for
us.
tomorrow. No,
Oh, well,
screw you.
Friday we'll see you.